The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders and tasty Minstrel games. Check out all their awesome products at arcanewonders.com and playtmg.com.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes are joined by me, Robb Rouse from Blue Peg Pink Peg. We review Star Wars Destiny from Fantasy Flight Games. Then we look back at the Dukes review of El Grande, the big box, and our Dukes Double-Take. And finally, we discuss the role of families and relationships in board games. And now, without further ado, it's your Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And I'm Rob.
And here we are at episode 140. Episode 140, Duchy Heads. 140 is an abundant number, which means that the sum of its proper divisors is greater than the number itself. 140 is also the sum of the squares of the first 7 integers, which makes it a square pyramidal number. Interesting. And then in base 10, it's divisible by the sum of its digits, which makes it a Harshad number. But in addition to all of those, 140 is a rep digit, which is a portmanteau for a repeated digit in bases 13, 19, 27, 34, 69, and 139, meaning that in those base number systems, the numbers repeat. So for example, in base 13, 140 is represented as AA, and in base 19, it's represented by 77. 140 is also the number of varieties of ashes from different varieties of pipe, cigar, and cigarette tobacco included in the Sherlock Holmes monograph. 140 is well known to be the Twitter entry character limit. 140 is the age that Job from the Bible died at, bummer, and it's the atomic number of unquadnillium. And finally, if you're ever lost in Egypt, you'll be glad to know that it's the telephone directory assistance number in that country. But what the Duchy Heads really want to know is, Robb Rouse, how you doing, buddy?
Oh my God, that was awesome. Did not expect that at all. Also, he died. Bummer. Well, I thought if you were going to ask me that question, how I was doing, it's going to come back with, well, I'm bummed. But you did the trivia. That was beautiful. Also, now I can't use any of that stuff when we get to 144.
Boom.
If we get to 144.
I cut you off from it.
Oh, man. Yeah, I am a little bummed. I was supposed to be here with my better half, Christina, my pink peg, and life, man, life. She got busy. I got back from RobCon. We were going in different directions. She had a training. She had her mother had a birthday in Idaho, and now she's at a derby thing, and we just couldn't make it work out. So you got me.
I got you, I got you, babe. But that's okay. Yeah. I'm excited to have you. I was excited to have you both, but I suspect there was also a little bit of Dukes of who on her part?
Okay. She doesn't have a lot of time to listen.
I know.
She doesn't even listen to my podcast.
I know.
She doesn't. And so I was like, well, you got to listen to some of them. So on the plane, she downloaded like the last 10 and she's like, I am ready. And then she just couldn't do it.
Well, I was looking forward to having her, but I understand all those commitments. But it is great to have you here for episode 140. And what we do
for having me.
Absolutely. And what we do with our episodes is we just title them. So we titled this one a simple I Know.
That was a beautiful, beautiful title. Is this perfect?
Yes. John Giblin, he nailed it. So if you're not familiar with Empire Strikes Back, hey, Rob, I love you.
I know.
Ah, perfect. Han Solo, what a scoundrel that guy is.
I gotta say, I know you don't want to talk about the naming of the podcast very much on the start of each episode, but I gotta say, I love doing it, and I realize I make it too hard. Like I'm getting it in my brain. I'm trying to come up with all these different things, but and I want to steal this for our podcast, but I can't. I just feel bad about doing it. But what a brilliant idea to bring in the guilds to help create something together. I love that idea.
Well, it generates a ton of excitement every week. So for those that don't know, we're guild number 2008 over on Board Game Geek, and the competition is fierce to name these episodes. We'll have a bunch of the runners up at the end, but it's just so perfect. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about Star Wars Destiny. John, You nailed it there, buddy.
Nailed it. Congratulations, John.
Yes, indeed. Real quick at the top of the show, before we jump into some game talk, I just want to give a quick pitch for our Patreon campaign. If you go over to dukesofdice.com/Patreon, you can go support the Dukes of Dice podcast. And we really appreciate it. It helps with subscription costs for software and hosting and blah, 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 all that stuff. But it's amazing how many awesome people we have out there that are supporting our show. You guys have a great Patreon campaign going too.
Yeah, we do. And, it does. I mean, we do it for free, but it really does help out with just everything. Like this year, Christina's going to be able to go to Gen Con. So we're really excited about that. And a lot of people want to meet up with Christina. They don't really care about anybody else. It's just all about Christina.
So if go check that out if you're so inclined. We'd really appreciate that. But let's jump into some board game, because some board game singular. How about some board games?
Board games?
Yeah, let's do like approximately 6.
That sounds
combined.
Good. I'll start. Now, if you listen to us at all, we rave about a game called Voluspa. Now, here lately, and Sean, I know you can relate to this, because having a podcast, we're always having to play the new. So we have content, we have something to talk about.
Oh, of course.
And the past couple weeks, Christina and I have just been kind of wanting to board game with just us, not having anything to talk about as I've given you content. But we've been playing a lot of Voluspa. And it's like here recently, we took Voluspa to a restaurant. We got a booth. It was just the two of us. We got a big booth and we spread this game out and people were just coming up and checking it out. Let me tell you a little bit. Have you ever played Voluspa, Sean?
I have not played Voluspa. Voluspa has never been discussed on the podcast, but I've heard plenty about it from you guys.
Okay, well, let me tell you how to play it, because we haven't really talked about how to play it in a very, very long time on our show. It's a Stronghold title. The designer is Scott Caputo. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Scott. He is Johnny on the spot in the guild, or I guess in the page for Voluspa. You have a question, he comes back within like a half a day with the answer. So props to him for monitoring that. But
nice.
Voluspa is a tile laying game. It's all about, it's just, the whole thing is you're laying tiles. And you have this pool of tiles that everybody's drawing from. And you start off the game and you take a tile at random and you flip it in the middle. Everybody has a handful of tiles and you're playing off that first tile that you lay down. Now, you're laying these tiles next to each other in columns and rows, and the basic rules are pretty easy. As you lay the tiles, you score the points based on the number of tiles in that row or column that you just placed the tile. You can score a row and column depending on how you place the tile, but that part isn't really that easy because you have some basic rules. First of all, you can't play in a row or a column if it has if it has 7 tiles. So you can't exceed that. So that's one restriction. Also, these tiles have numbers on them. And if you want to score a row or a column that you just placed your tile, the tile that you're playing must have the highest number in that row or column. And the game ends when all the tiles in the pool in your hand they're all gone. Now, if you were just to tell me those rules, I'd be like, Rob, man, this sounds boring. This is this tiles and numbers. Like I can play dominoes. The kicker here is that all the tiles have powers, and these powers are all different. Like, so each type of tile, there's might be 4 or 5 of them in the game. They break the rules. There's different scoring opportunities. For example, the Loki tile, the tile value is a 1, but when you lay it down, everything around it is a 0. Or like the troll tile, you lay the trolls down and no one can lay a tile next to the troll. The game is essentially trolling trolls. No one likes trolls. And it's so strategic because you've got a handful of tiles and you're wondering, wait, how many of these are left in the game? What is she playing? What's happening? It's so much fun. And that's why it's one of my top 5 games. And I think you can play it over at Yukata too, but I just haven't been able to get into that. But yeah, I love playing the physical version of it.
Okay, so I've been listening to you guys for 3 years now.
Yeah.
All right. I have heard you talk about Voluspa a dozen or more times. Okay. So I'm on Amazon. Okay, wait a second. Is this an expansion? Voluspa Order of the Gods?
Yes. Yes. So, for Voluspa, the box that Stronghold sold, it had an expansion in it, and then it came out with another expansion, and then it's got some like random tiles in it too. So the Order of the Gods, yes, is an expansion. It comes with like maybe 5 or 6 additional types of tiles. But yeah, that's the expansion. You want to get the basic Voluspa.
Okay, then here we go. Boom. Done. Ordered. Because enough's enough, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I know we just talked about it, but now I'm going to want an update later on when you play it.
Yes,
absolutely. Even if it's, I don't know what Rob was talking
this
about.
Game is terrible.
This is horrible. But I absolutely love this game. So yeah, let me know what you think. What have you been playing?
So I got to play Quests of Valeria. This is from Daily Magic Games. We reviewed another of the Valeria games, Villages of Valeria, not too long ago. And this is a game where you are taking on the role of a guild master, recruiting and dispatching citizens to complete quests posted in a tavern in the capital city of Valeria. And you do this to, of course, earn victory points. All right. Here's how you describe this game. Ready?
Yeah.
Lords of Waterdeep, the card game. That's what it is.
No, when you, I like, do you like Lords of Waterdeep?
I do. I love Lords of Waterdeep. It is a fantastic, maybe, I hesitate to call it Gateway, but maybe like Gateway Plus.
Yeah, Gateway 0.5.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sound too bad to me. That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, it does sound very fun. So what happened at our Dukes Dice game night last night, I opened it up, I had it on order, and I said, okay, well, let's just go through the rules real quick. I don't think it'll be too much of a rules explanation. And as I'm kind of teaching the table the rules, I'm like, that's just like Lords of Waterdeep. Next rule. Oh, that's just like Lords of Waterdeep too. So basically, you are trying to collect these citizens, and they have different types. There are soldiers and mystic type. There's 4 types, kind of like there's the 4 main type of. Right, exactly. And so you are then collecting them in order to fulfill these quest cards. And these quests are going to be worth certain points and then certain bonus abilities when you complete them. And these quests have different categories. So there's like a warfare and a treachery type or something like that, because you are getting a guildmaster card, which is a secret identity, which is giving you bonus points for having completed certain types of quest cards, just like you would in Lords of Waterdeep. So, okay. Now, all that being said, this is kind of cool, because ultimately what you're doing is you're taking 2 actions on your turn. You can either draw a card, or you can hire a worker, or a citizen, I should say, from this central play area where they cost certain amounts. So I think there are 6 of them out, and you can get one for free. There's a couple for 1, a couple for 2, and some for 3. When you hire them, they may have some sort of ability that triggers. So it may let you draw a card, or it may let you get another hire action. So you can kind of chain certain things together. Eventually, you're going to take an action, which is going to be, maybe you've reserved a quest card from the center. And then once you're ready to complete a quest, you're going to sacrifice, you're going to send off a certain number of the citizens that you've played in your play area that have certain icons on them that meet the requirements. So maybe you need at least 1 mystic card, and you need at least 1 adventurer card, but then you also need a certain number of magic symbols that these cards have, some gold that the cards might have, etc. And so you do that, you tuck the quest, and whoever gets to 5 quests first will trigger the end game. Then you add up all the points, and that's about it. It was okay at 4. As we started going over the rules, I'm like, oh, this sounds really good. This sounds really exciting. It lasted at 4 players, I'd say about 10 to 12 minutes too long. And we were all kind of like, all right, we get it.
Well, how long did it take?
It was about a 40-minute game, which isn't bad. It's not bad, but it felt like it needed to be a 30-minute game. I think this might be a lot better at 3, because there was a good amount of downtime at 4 players, especially as someone's like starting to chain a couple things together. I will say that there was no engine building whatsoever. So in Villages of Valeria, there's some engine building. In their first Valeria game, I forget what it's called, but it's kind of similar to Machikoro. I think there's some engine building. And not that Lords of Waterdeep has to have engine building. I think there's a little bit, because when in Lords, when you complete certain quests, what are those quests called that have like ongoing effects?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the name of it.
Plot quests. I think they're called plot quests.
That's right.
It gives you some sort of ongoing ability, so it's kind of a light engine building. Here, you're building up, and then you kind of discard everything, get rid of everything. And so you would have some big turns, and then you'd have some building turns. And it was just kind of, I don't know, it was kind of weird. I think I might really enjoy this at 2 players. I think I'll like this a lot at 3. I'm very interested to try this at different player counts, but 4, not for me.
What was the feel of the table after you were done? So you put the game up and everyone's like, what did they say?
I think almost exactly the same. And it plays 5. So I will never play this game at 5.
No.
Yeah. I think 2, 3 might be the sweet spot. I think I would really enjoy this as a 2-player duel style game. But yeah, for the most part, the table, all solid gamers, all experienced gamers. Yeah, it was lacking a bit, at least at that. So I don't know. We'll give it another shot.
And that was called Quests of Valeria?
Quests of Valeria, Daily Magic Games, designed by Isaias Vallejo.
So the game that I have been playing the most in the past 3 months is Seafall. Now don't worry, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but we're very close to the end. And as I said in my podcast, is like we're trying to get through it because I've got to get to Gloomhaven. It's sitting there, that giant box on my shelf right now. It's screaming my name. But my campaign night, we got to get to Seafall. So I'm going to tell you kind of how Seafall works. This is Plaid Hat Games designers Rob Davio and J.R. Honeycutt. It's a 4X-inspired legacy game that takes place on the sea. All the players plays mainland empires, discovering seafaring technology, the world, the narrative, which is really rich in this game, and just basically the game, because the game evolves as you hit certain milestones in the games. When there's milestones that tell you, hey, you got to do X. When you do X, you open up a box, and in that box, there's more stuff. So basically, when you open up these boxes, there's more mechanics, and it adds to the game. Basically, Seafall is like a dice game. There's a bunch of dice in this game, and it has the dice have different types of successes on them, or they just have blanks. And some of the actions you're doing, like raiding or exploring, you're rolling these dice. Maybe you don't want to raid and explore. You can also be a merchant. There's some ways to get points going that way as well. Being the first one to hit these milestones give you a lot of points, and there's other things that give you points, but each game session is predetermined as a predetermined set of points that a person has to get, and then it ends the game. Now, what's interesting here is that after every game session, you record your points on the back of this log. And without giving too much away, because whoever has the most points at the end, it becomes the emperor of the game, and that's how you win. But there's a catch-up mechanic or mechanism or whatever you want to call it. There is a catch-up mechanic in this game, but I don't want to give away too much. The reveals in this game, Sean, they've been incredible. They've been like, we've been sitting there playing, and it's just like, what? I mean, especially like the very first play. We were like, have you played Seafall at all, Sean?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, I'd be hesitant on pushing. Don't go to Amazon quite yet on this, because it's got
I'm not moving. I'm just listening.
It's got a lot of bad feedback. One of the problems that people have with this game is that it's swingy. Those milestones, when I say you get points off of them, sometimes they're huge. And you'll be sitting there setting up your play, getting kind of an engine building, getting ready to go, and then some guy will do a thing, and I'm talking in generalities here.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, it's over, and you're just like, what? And that makes a lot of people mad. To us, we don't care. We love it. We love just the fun of just exploring the game, and we can't wait to find out how it ends. But I can see how it rubs a lot of people wrong. Now, we are 15 or 16 games into it. We've got maybe 1 or 2 left, and then we're done. I'm ready. I'm ready for it to be done.
Sure.
But I've gotten my money out of it, and it's on. Like, I paid the price for it because I got the bonus with the nice coins in it and all that. I've gotten my money out of it, and it's cheap out there right now. So if you like legacy games and this doesn't sound like it would make you mad, I would get it. But it does make some people mad. Yeah,
I've got some friends that are working their way through it, and that's kind of been. They are enjoying the experience, but they're like, yeah, we're kind of done. We're eager for this to be over. For me, the fact that it's been described to me and people have kind of confirmed for me that it has a similar feel to Merchants and Marauders. I know there's a little bit more. I know there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
but I know that if that's even 30% of its core, I'm not a big fan of Merchants and Marauders.
I'm not a fan of Merchant Marauders either. Like, I don't like. I've played it 2 or 3 times. I know it has an expansion. I'm not interested in that game at all.
Sure.
Seafall has been a blast. I mean, because you're building this board and it's, I don't know. I've had a lot of fun. But like you said, I'm ready for it to be done. Like
yeah.
I'm good. I've had I want to see how it ends, and then I'm out.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's Seafall from Plaid Hat.
All right, well, I got to play Veggie Garden last night. This is another title from Quick, Simple, Fun Games. They brought over Burano. Did they do Celestia? I can't remember, but they also did Hanamakoji, which I love. Have you played Hanamakoji?
I have not.
Oh, man, you need to play Hanamakoji. You need to go over to Amazon and buy Hanamakoji right now.
I'm looking at it.
I think the hardest part is you won't be able to spell Hanamakoji.
I'll work it out.
Okay. So this is a game for 2 to 4 players where you are trying to grow the best vegetables in a limited amount of time. And ultimately, it's a set collection game where you are trying to collect, there's going to be 5 different vegetables, although there are 6 that you have available from game to game. So different vegetables will have different powers, which is kind of a weird thing. But basically, you only play with 5 out of 6 of them. So the game, it's got a little bit of variability in there. And the main board is basically these vegetable cards in a 4x4 grid. And surrounding the vegetables are these different fence posts. And you shuffle them up. Some of the fence posts are worth 0, 1, 2, or 3 points. And so throughout the game, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using abilities to manipulate the cards, the different veggie cards that are on the board, because at the end of the game, you want them to be adjacent to certain fence posts to make that particular veggie worth a certain amount of points. Because at the end of the game, you're going to have a hand of 8 cards from cards that you're selecting each round. And so, for example, if there's a tomato next to a 1 fence post and another tomato next to a 3 fence post, then all tomatoes that I have in my hand at the end of the game are worth 4 points. Okay. And if I've got four tomatoes, am I going back and forth between tomatoes and potatoes? Let's assume I've been saying tomatoes this whole time. So if I've got 4 tomatoes in hand, then I will have scored 16 points for those tomatoes. And if I have at least 1 of every vegetable type, I'm going to score a bonus 10 points. And every time you pick one of these veggies to add to your hand, you're considering, hey, this is going to be, counting towards my end game scoring, but it's also going to determine what type of action I'm able to take. So there's some action that lets you maybe swap to 2 adjacent veggies, or there's one that lets you move the fence posts around, or there's one that lets you replace one of the veggies in play with one from your hand. It was fine. This was obviously a very light game. It was a little chaotic. We played it at 4 players, and I wasn't terribly impressed by it, even kind of looking at it for what it is, a very lightweight family game. And I think there's a lot of other games of this weight that I would rather pull out in its place. It was a little bit fiddly, not too much so, but it wasn't super exciting. It was.
Did you play it with a family, your family, or did you play it with professional gamers?
Yeah,
who did you play with?
Professional gamers, pretty much. Yeah, no, it was. But it was with players that can appreciate family weight games. You know what I mean? And certainly, I think this might have a place in some people's collection. I'm not rushing out to get this specifically for the for the weight and for the purpose of it. Like I said, I've got plenty that do what this game can do. It was kind of interesting, but it's not something I'm eager to play again. I think I would probably avoid any more plays of it. So
avoid it.
I think so. It's worth a look. It's cute. If you've got some family gamers, it might be worth a look at least. So
what age bracket do you think for the kids? Like if you were going to try to introduce this to some kids?
So the box says 12 and up, and I think you can go younger. I think you can go like 6, 7 maybe. I think some of the nuances are going to be lost, and some of the long-term strategy, because there is some strategy to the game, and there's some tactical play too. But I think certainly you can make that work. It is kind of language intensive, and I use intensive in a weird way. It's not really that intensive, but the different veggie powers are written out. Yeah. There's no iconography, and so it was kind of annoying to have to like read the card each time rather than just have a quick visual reference from some sort of iconography. So, but that's Veggie Garden from Quick Simple Fun. But hey, Hanamakoji is really good. So
I'll have to check it out. Speaking of kids games, one of the things that I love to do on a Sunday, and it's sort of like a tradition now, is that my daughter and I will get up because, again, Christina's got Derby on Sunday afternoons, and that's when she goes, and it's just a little bit of daddy-daughter time. And one of the things that she loves to do is we go to a coffee shop, and we play board games. Of course, I don't give her coffee because she's 6, and I'd be a horrible parent.
Yeah.
Social services are going to be calling me if I say that. But no, we sit there and we play a lot of board games, and she loves it. And so at first, I was the one introducing the games, and I still like if we get a big box of something in, or I get a game I know she's gonna like, I'll introduce it. But most of the time, I let her pick the game. And one of the games, it's a go-to for her, is Pharaoh's Gulo by Haba. Now, I'm not the one to pronounce names. I'm probably going to mispronounce the designers, but I'm going to try it anyway. Jürgen Grunau, Wolfgang Kramer, and Hans Ragen.
Can you pronounce them? Can you pronounce them like Patrick would pronounce them?
Like Patrick? No, I can't do it. Like. Poor Patrick. He really likes to get into it.
Oh, yeah. No, it's great. It's great.
That's not my bag, baby. So in this game, your hero's walking through a pyramid, and there's this angry mummy walking around the pyramid, and the heroes are trying to end his curse. But what's the selling point in this game is this main movement mechanism in the game. There's a bowl full of wooden balls of various sizes and various colors, and standing right in the middle of the bowl is this staff. And of course, the staff is top heavy, but it's not falling over because, again, it's in a bowl of balls. And so what you do on your turn is that you flip the first tile that's in this pyramid, and the tiles, of course, have colors on them. And then you got to go into this bowl, and you got to pull out a ball that represents that color. If you can pull it out, you can move to that space. There's also some scarabs that you can collect in certain spaces. Those help you unlock the end game, unlock the end room where you go in, and again, you pull out some balls. Now, let's say you've got some fat, meaty fingers like myself, and you can't get your fingers in these balls to get these balls out, because sometimes you're trying to get these balls out, and they're moving around, and you're like, and your child's laughing at you. And if the staff falls out of the bowl, you got to go back to the beginning. Like, you're moved back. Now, that's okay, because on your turn, you can flip reveal a tile and move up to that space. So you're just basically missing a turn, essentially. Okay. But if the staff falls out, you reset the bowl. So you put all the balls in there, you put the staff back in there. Also, on these tiles that you flip around, they've got mummy heads on them, and that makes the mummy move around. So if the mummy moves to you, moves by you, on you, it knocks a scarab off of you. And of course, again, you need those scarabs to unlock the last door. Or if you don't have any scarabs, it knocks you out of the pyramid. The game is simple. I love it because my daughter loves it.
Oh,
because
sure.
she's got these tiny surgical fingers. She's gonna be a doctor. She's going in this thing and she's pulling out, and I'm like, are you sure you want to go? Like, she pulls a red, right? I think red's the biggest, or blue's the smallest. So there's a blue. She pulls a blue. There's a blue on top. She goes for the blue in the very bottom, and she has no fear. Like, she pulls it out, and she's like, "Look, Daddy." And then I get the biggest one, and I can't pull it out. Oh my God, she just loves laughing, and I love being with her when she plays this game. I wouldn't break this. Sometimes I'll talk about these hobby games, and I'll say, yeah, this would be fun if I had a beer with some other adults when we were playing it. There's a lot of, like, Super Rhino or Rhino Hero.
Sure,
man, by the way, I'm excited about that new game, the new Rhino Hero coming out, but that's beside the point. Like, games like that, I'm like, yeah, this one, I'm not breaking out with my buddies when we have a couple adult beverages, but I will break it out with her because she enjoys it. And what's really great is, like, we'll have kids come over to the neighborhood, and she's so comfortable with the game. Again, she's 6. She can teach all the neighborhood kids, and they love it. So if you've got someone around 5, 6, 7, 8, this game I definitely recommend. And that is Pharaoh's Gulo by Haba.
So let me ask you this, because I did a little research on this. So in Pharaoh's Pharaoh's Gulo. Am I saying that right?
Gulo.
Why does it sound wrong when I say it?
I don't know.
So this is a reimplementation of Gulo, which is about Wolverine. So is that Italian or French for Wolverine? Are there any Wolverines?
There's no Wolverines. I'm looking it up too. I don't see anything about Wolverines in here, but I don't know.
So in the original game, each player is a Gulo or Wolverine trying to rescue a baby Gulo who got caught by the swamp vulture whose eggs it was trying to steal.
I want to play that game. That sounds fun. Forget the mummy. Well, I want to be a Wolverine.
Well, wait, because initially, before it was Pharaoh's Gulo Gulo, the original name for it was Fair Uh-Oh. No? All right. That's what it says.
I can see that. You pull it out and the ball falls. No, man, I'm glad they renamed it. Pharaoh's Uh-Oh.
Yeah. All right. Well, the last game that I'm going to talk about is Arboretum. And this is something I've talked about before, but I hadn't played it in a while. In fact, I hadn't played it in a while to the extent that I had to really kind of reread the rules, which is too bad. This is designed by Dan Kassar, and this is a rummy style game. And I've been on this big rummy kick recently. I mean, probably for the last 2 months or so, been playing a lot of mystery rummy. We played some the other night, in fact, too. And Arboretum is a rummy style game, but it's a spatial rummy game. So when I say rummy style game, I mean that you are starting the turn by drawing some amount of cards. You're then playing out some amount of cards. And then at the end of your turn, you're having to discard some cards. So there's always a tough decision of what cards am I going to make available for other players to pick up because I've discarded them. But what this does different than these other rummy style games is there's a spatial element where you are creating this orchard and you're trying to create a series of these beautifully illustrated trees. And there's different suits. And so they're different tree types. There's like dogwood and oak, and that's the extent of my remembrance of tree names. Willow. Did I say willow? There are willows too. And so what I'm doing is I'm placing one card into my orchard, and it has to be adjacent to a card I've already played. And at the end of the game, I'm potentially going to score points if I start with a yellow 3 and I have a path that goes to, say, a yellow 8. The cards go from 1 to 8. And for every card in that path that's sequential, I'm going to score a point. Now, the cards that are in between don't necessarily have to be of the same color. It's just the start and the end card that you care about. But you're going to get some bonus points if they are. In fact, you'll get some bonus points if you start a path with a 1. You get some bonus points if you start a path with an 8. But the trick is you're not going to automatically score whatever you've laid out, because at the end of the game, you're going to have a hand of 6 cards, I think, 5, 6 cards. And you're adding up the value of each suit to see who has the right to actually score that suit.
And how many suits did you say?
Depends on the number of players. I played at 3, and I believe at 3 there are 6 suits.
Okay.
And so it's really interesting because you want to put out enough cards there to have a nice scoring path, but you have to hold back certain cards in order to be able to actually score that path. So like that 8 is potentially worth 3 points by itself, but I might need that 8 to make sure I can actually score it. However, a 1 trumps an 8. A 1, if someone has the Willow 1 and I have a Willow 8, my 8 is now worth 0. So it is a terrible, terrible choice that you're making every time, and it's gut-wrenching, but it's fantastic. I love this game. I think Arboretum is just fantastic. And it's a little bit weird how the scoring works. It's a little bit weird to kind of wrap your head around it that first time. So we played a couple games back to back because that second game is like, okay, everything's kind of clicking again. It's super good, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's great.
You know, it sounds like the give and take and the decisions you got to make sounds really interesting. I've seen this game. I've seen the box.
Sure.
And I just look at the box. I'm like, I'm just not interested. I'm that guy that looks at a box and makes important buying decisions based on the box. But now I'm looking at these cards and these colors. It's a beautiful game.
Yeah.
They should put some more color on the box.
Yeah. No, it's kind of a simple green box with like some gold filigree. Am I using that word correctly? I think I am.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guy,
okay.
But yeah.
Hey, can you call Patrick real quick?
Yeah, I'll get him on the phone.
Okay.
The pedigree.
So yeah, it's a fantastic game. Dan Kassar, he did Blood of an Englishman for Renegade Games, And I think he's a great designer especially for like this just kind of I want to call it a simple card game because the depth here is pretty insane.
It doesn't sound simple. It sounds like there's a lot of depthy choices and decisions to make.
It's not complex, but it's certainly
all right. Well, you might have sold me on this one. Like I was going to try to get away without buying anything, but now I'm like, this is actually wow. It looks pretty cool. I'm checking it out.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely recommend this one. So that's Arboretum from Z-Man Games, and that's going to do it for our recent plays. Let's head on over to the news desk. If anyone recalls last week, I kind of talked about maybe getting rid of the news because I was trying to keep the podcast shorter.
Don't do it, Sean.
We're doing some news stuff over on the YouTube channel, but there was this huge thread on the Guild where at least 20 plus people weighed in and were like, don't get rid of the news. Your YouTube channel sucks. Just do stuff here on the podcast.
I don't believe they said that.
They didn't say that, but it was a lot of like, hey, I'm not saying like, listen, I don't watch the YouTube channel. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying you're not doing a great job over there. I'm just saying I listen to the podcast. And I think the big lesson is that my podcast, the Dukes of Dice podcast audience may not necessarily be the Dukes of Dice YouTube audience. And
that's probably right.
And I assumed that there would be a lot more crossover than there is. So,
well, some people just consume, like they're in their car.
Right.
Like I don't have, like if I'm at home, I don't have time to watch something on the internet, but in their car, they're listening. So maybe that's how they consume your news, man. I wouldn't cut it.
It's backed by very popular demand. So yeah, let's jump in. So Steve Jackson Games is bringing one of my favorite games by one of my favorite designers, Port Royal, to the US. This is an Alexander Pfister game, and this is not a typical Steve Jackson game title. I mean, there was a news release that came out just the other day, their Daily Illuminator newsletter, and there was a lot of mention of Munchkin games, which we're not going to talk about here, but I think this is a fantastic get for them. Because this game, I mean, number one, Alexander Pfister, hot designer, right? I mean, both physically and as, a great designer. and this is a fantastic game. There's this tremendous press your luck aspect here. I mean, ultimately, it's kind of a simple set collection game, but you get special abilities, and the press your luck is just so much fun in this game. This will be coming out around Gen Con time, August 2017. Yeah. So I highly recommend. So I know you haven't played this, Rob.
No, I haven't. But Patrick's been raving about it. He's so excited.
No, it's excellent. And I have I've talked about this before, but I have one of the expansions, and I still haven't played with that. Need to play this game if you haven't already. So check that out. If you don't have it, it's been because it's Pegasus Spiel, so it's been hard to get over here in the U.S. So August 2017, you're going to have another fantastic Alexander Pfister title available to you.
And I think that's interesting. I'm wondering if Steve Jackson Games is trying to diversify their gaming portfolio. Like maybe they don't want to put all their eggs in the Munchkin basket.
Maybe, but I mean, yeah, it's hard to say because I mean, Munchkin, while it may not be everyone's cup of tea, it's certainly not mine. I have had plenty of long nights playing Munchkin, but it's not something that I'm interested that much now. But it's still a really popular game.
And you can get it everywhere, like all the bookstores. You can at Walmart. You can find it everywhere. And I played it. I played it when we first. But like you, I don't have any desire to play it now. But yeah, I mean, I play it. I know a lot of people who still do. So
yeah. All right, the next bit of news is a little interesting. Asmodee's parent company just released their fiscal year report. So I didn't know this. I mean, I knew they were owned by this French company. It's called Eurazeo, Eurazeo.
Nailed it.
Yeah, perfect. So they, the parent company, this is not Asmodee, this is the parent company. They brought in 4.3 billion euro in revenue. About 4.6 billion here in US dollars. And what's interesting is this company, Eurazeo, is a shareholder in 34 different companies, of which Asmodee is one part. But what was really cool was throughout this fiscal report, they kept holding out Asmodee and a couple other of their 34 companies as kind of examples of like top performers. So that's really interesting.
A lot of people kind of knocked the trend that Asmodee, he was buying everything, but now they're laughing their way to the bank. I mean, clearly they're doing well.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So as a whole, Eurazeo was involved in 29 total acquisitions, and they shout out Asmodee. They note them as being particularly active in that regard, which of course here in the board game industry we know that. Yeah. And then they also highlighted Asmodee as being one of their companies that were showing strong net profits among all the companies. So I just think it's interesting that here's this what I think is a fairly well diversified investment company that their little game company, not little, but their game company is doing solid. So, and speaking of, Asmodee, they posted revenue of 377 million euro, which is up about 40% compared to last year. That's crazy. Yeah, that's really crazy.
Significant.
Wow. So 75% of their revenue is international. So, of course, again, this is a French company, right? Yeah. 75% of their revenue is international, mostly US and the UK, which I think that makes perfect sense.
Yep.
One of the big drivers for their revenue was Pokemon, their Pokemon cards. So their total, their net profit, and it's called EBITDA, which I'm not an accountant by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know that we use that term too much over here, but basically it's net profit, not including what you're paying out in various taxes. But anyway, 65 million euro was their net profit, which is a 17.3 profit margin, which is a pretty decent profit margin based on my little knowledge. That's pretty strong. Interesting to read these. I've always enjoyed reading these. Like I used to read Games Workshops every year.
Yeah, I remember you talking about them.
And I find this interesting where, we're always talking about Asmodee acquiring stuff, and we're talking about what Asmodee is publishing and their different studios and things like that. And here's kind of the other side of it, where it's just the business perspective and the numbers. And I think ultimately we need to realize that there's a parent company and there are shareholders, and ultimately that's what's driving stuff. But yeah, no, what do you think, Rob?
I think at the end of the day, they're doing it right. Whatever that they need to do, they're doing it right. For us as a consumer, I don't know, the jury's still out, but I feel like that, they're seeing these numbers and they're not going to change anything and how they're doing business. I mean, this is excellent.
No, yeah. And I think it's confirmation, the big story, a year and a half ago now was, changing their online selling policy and favoring brick and mortar stores and, things like that.
Yeah.
And clearly it's working for them. So
yeah,
I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
But these are the numbers kind of straight out after, these changes. I would be interested to see a couple more years out.
Right.
Like what happens? What's next? That's what I'd be interested in seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. But, like I said, 377 million euro in revenue. I mean, that's
a little bit of change.
Yeah. Yeah. By all means. All right. Well, last thing we're talking about is a Kickstarter. This is the White Box, a game design workshop in a box. And this is up. It's got about 27 days to go as the time of recording. May 17th is when this ends. Right now, it's raised $22,000.
Its goal was $10,000, so it's made its goal.
And so the idea here is it's a big box of components to help you design your game, to get that game idea in your head out into actual components so you can play test it. This is kind of a novel concept in a sense. All of the things that are in here, you can get through other avenues, right?
Yeah, but you're putting it all... I feel like this is sort of a see a need, fill a need situation. So yeah, you can go out and get your blank meeples here, or get your chits here, or get your discs here. This is putting it all together in one box, and it sounds like they're throwing in a bunch of essays too on how to help you start your game.
Right. So what you get, and there are a couple different price options, but basically if you're in this, you're in for $50. And it's going to get you a 128 page perfect bound book. I don't know what that means, about how to make games from some various designers. It's getting you 2 punchboard sheets of custom counters and markers, some blank ones, some pre-printed ones. You get 100 standard wooden cubes of various colors. You get 24 standard wooden meeples of various colors, 4 giant wooden cubes, 40 plastic discs of different colors, and then 50 plastic discs, which are gold and silver, and then 8 standard 6-sided dice. And you get all that for $50. And there's some stretch goals, which I won't go over the stretch goals, but I mean, it's definitely adding to the value of what you get inside based on that.
It's more of the same. More tokens, more components, different colors, stuff like that.
Yeah.
$50, Sean, what do you think?
Well, so I have prototyped about 5 or 6 different games, and I've never been that happy with any of them. I've certainly spent a decent amount of money for each of them because I've gone to various places. I've gone to MeepleSource to get components. I've gotten a bunch of those like fishbowl, like plastic crystals, those acrylic crystals that you can find in some games that are supposed to be these amazing upgraded components, but they're dirt cheap if you get them as part of an aquarium set or whatever. Right. And I mean, I've bought meeples before. I've got a bunch of different those like classroom plastic cubes. Those are, you can get like a huge tub of them for $20, and it's way cheaper than some of the wooden cubes. So I've certainly, I've done this, and I've probably spent about anywhere from $20 to $50 prototyping a game, depending on what components are going in.
Right.
I think that you're getting a lot of universal pieces that you're going to need from game to game, but I also feel like I wonder to what extent that's going to constrain your design.
Yeah, I think it will. Like, I think that it's a good idea, but I can see, like, if you're buying this, like, I got this great game, a game idea, I'm going to buy this. You're going to start crafting it, and you're going to need more stuff. Like, you're going to be like, I need this instead. Now, does your game idea expand out, or do you let it be kind of constricted due to what you get in this box? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you would want to say, okay, I'll get this, and if I need to pick up some other type of component, I don't know. Interesting, there's nothing for you to do with cards in this. There are no cards.
I just noticed that.
Which is something that, I mean, almost every game I've designed has had some amount of cards, some, being exclusively card games, some having at least some.
But I imagine that would have been hard, because I have done some prototype with cards, and what size do you want? Like, how do you write on them? What's the that might have made this super expensive.
And to me, doing the cards is the hardest part. Like, I know Mike Fitzgerald, he buys these perforated sheets where he can put them in a printer and then tear them apart. Oh man, that's so easy. They're kind of expensive. They're like $100, but you get a couple thousand pages. But for him, who's designing, mostly card games, and he's working on this, that's fine. For someone who's more of a casual designer, who maybe after his 20th attempt will get a game that's halfway decent, that's kind of a big investment. And I've certainly done the, print them up and then go to, paper cut them and put them in sleeves, and so that's where I want some help, I think, is with cards.
I think that at the end of the day, it's a good project at the right time. Like, I hear, like, almost everybody I know is making a board game.
Sure.
And I haven't seen anything like this on Kickstarter. I don't know if you have. So it's a really good idea. And I think that's why it's funded. That's why it's got, $22,000 and it's 27 days left. It's got 545 backers. So it is a good idea at the right time. I personally, I don't think I would do it for the 50, but man, I mean.
Well, let me put it in perspective. Sorry, because and this might help. $30 is really the box. It's the box and it's the essays. $50 gets you some additional material. So is $30? Is that something that's doable?
Yeah, I think it is, actually.
Okay. Yeah, $30 seems a little bit more reasonable, I guess.
That seems a little more reasonable. And when I first looked at this, I thought that the essays were just all PDFs, but you actually get a bound book that comes with it too, which I guess was originally one of my problems, but then I saw, there's a book there too. I think $30 is reasonable, and that's where everybody looks like it's backing it. So 279 backers as we speak at the $30 level. Yeah. So that's a little more reasonable, actually. It's a good start.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm at a point where I have just so many components that very rarely would I need to go out and get something. But I think if, you don't want to start that process of just kind of collecting stuff, yeah, it's all you might need or isn't here. I don't know.
You know what I can see? I can see this as a gift too. Like I can see this as like, you know what? I know Rob, he's trying to make a game. This would be a great gift to give him. Or I didn't see when this was going to get to the backers, but I could see giving this to Rob for Christmas. And, and what a unique idea to give, someone that's a gamer. He's talked about making a game. This would be a good gift. At first, going into this, I wasn't poo-pooing it, but I was like, I'm not really interested. But now I'm like, this might not be a bad gift for someone.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it definitely could be, especially. Well, you told a story in the RobCon episode, right? Where you had an idea from one of the previous episodes where you guys pitched some board game ideas, and Isaac Childress, designer of Gloomhaven, who was there at RobCon, was like, "Hey,
oh my." I don't want to get all teary-eyed again, but I mean, and at the time I did have a couple beverages, but he's like, hey man, we listened, because that was one of our topic ideas. Like, all right, everybody's going to bring a game to the table. And I had been working on this. By working on it, I spent a lot of time in my car, Sean. So I think a lot, like I'm driving around. And so I was constantly thinking about this idea. And so that's what I brought to the table. And we were at RobCon at the very end. Isaac's like, hey, I want to show you something. I was thinking, man, Gloomhaven stuff. Yeah, I'm going to see some. And he brought out, and the name of the game is Scrapland. That was kind of, it's a working title. I don't know. And he's like, I want to show you Scrapland. And man, I'm a man. I talk a lot. I'm not saying a lot, but I talk a lot. And I didn't have any. I got teary eyed. All I could do was hug the man. So yes, now the game I'm making is mostly all cards. So this doesn't do anything for me. I don't need a bunch of meeples. But yeah, I mean, if a friend was talking about, I don't know where to start, and I just, here, take this white box. Here's a bunch of stuff. Right. Get started. So I'm on the white box train now. Like that's funny. I've evolved. Like I was like, $50. I don't want to do that. There's no book in it. Wait a minute, there is a book in it. Okay, but still 50. Oh wait, I can get all this stuff for $30. All right, I might be in. So yeah, now I'm on the white box train.
Yeah. All right. Well, fair enough. So go check out the white box on Kickstarter. You got some time if you're listening to this thing close to the release date of the episode. So that's going to do it for our Kickstarter, and that's going to do it for the look at the news. Nick, I've got a very important question for you.
Shoot, Sean.
Are you subscribing to Tasty Minstrel Games newsletter?
Not yet, but something tells me I should be.
Well, head on over to playtmg.com to sign up so you can get all the latest news and info about Tasty Minstrel Games.
In their latest newsletter, they announced some awesome new games, either releasing this year or hitting Kickstarter this year.
For one of my favorite designers, Hisashi Hayashi, TMG will be bringing us Okie Dokie. In this game, the players work as a team trying to put on a music festival comprised of several different performers. This will be available sometime in Q2.
Flow of History is a condensed civilization game with a unique bidding mechanism. Expect to see this on Kickstarter soon.
Finally, Downfall, designed by the same designer of Mystic Vale, will be hitting Kickstarter later this year. This will be TMG's first minis game, which will feature area control, card drafting, and simultaneous action selection, plus a futuristic setting where the Earth is in near ruin with humanity facing extinction.
Be sure to check out all of Tasty Minstrel Games' other awesome titles at playtmg.com.
This week, we're headed to a galaxy far, far away. We're using the Force. We're telling each other I love you, only to be spurned with an I know. We're playing some Star Wars Destiny. All right, Star Wars Destiny from Fantasy Flight Games, designed by Corey Koneska and Lucas Litzinger, who are kind of some of the in-house guys over there at Fantasy Flight Games. And this is a card and dice game where you are taking control of some heroes of the rebellion or of the empire or whatever. It spans the prequels and the current movies and the original trilogy. All of that. And what you're doing is you are building a deck. You're either building a deck of heroes or a deck of villains. And then you are adding some cards, and then some of these cards are going to have some dice. Not going to go too much into the deck construction here, but basically, you're going to build your Luke Skywalker and Admiral Akbar, or I've got a deck of mother-daughter. It's Leia and Amidala, which works pretty interesting until Leia dies. But so anyway, we'll talk about deck construction a little bit later, but the gameplay is fairly simple. You are drawing some cards, you're playing some cards, you've got resources that you're using to pay for them, and you are rolling these awesome chunky dice to activate these characters, and then you're resolving these. Some of them are going to do damage. Some of them are going to give you more resources. Some of them are going to put shields on your characters or activate special abilities of the cards. And ultimately, your goal is to cause enough damage to your opponent's heroes so that they're dead, or if you could make it so that they have no cards in their hand or their deck at the end of a turn, they just lose.
So some of those dice also makes the person discard cards from their hand and stuff like that. So if you're familiar with Magic, it does have some mill. Like
yes.
That was one of the decks I used to play all the time, was the mill decks where you're trying to deck your opponent. There's some of that in this game too.
And I think it's a very viable strategy.
It is, and I know I don't want to break this up too much, but in the official tournament rules, you have a set amount of time to play, and to deck an opponent, you got to be quick about it. So it is viable. Like it is. I mean, that's the first two decks I built was straight out mill decks, but you have to keep that in mind if you're playing official tournaments.
Right. And ultimately, you're going to be equipping your characters. You're giving them lightsabers. You're giving them certain guns. You're giving them thermal detonators. You're adding supports. So you might be adding a TIE fighter. Is there a TIE fighter in this? I can't remember now. There's an X-Wing, there's the Millennium Falcon, there are speeder bikes. So there's all different types of supports that you can add that are adding more dice that you have to roll. And then there's cool action cards. There's a lot going on here, and it's an interesting back and forth. And we'll kind of get into that when we talk about gameplay. But that's the very short of it here. But of course, this is the type of game where it's not just about the game, right? There's a whole meta to it. There's having to build decks. There's having to test out your decks. Is this deck working well? Is this not working well? Do I need to add this card? Do I need to trade to get this card? Do I need to go buy a single of this card to make this deck any better? And I know that that's going to be a big turnoff for a lot of our listeners.
And Jeremy in my podcast, if he was to listen to what you just said, he'd be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's collectible. I got to buy singles. Forget that business. Me being like, I started in Magic, in early 90s. I was playing a lot of Magic, and I love deck construction.
Yes.
So of course, like Magic, you got rules. You can't have X amount of cards in a deck. You have to have all of a certain type. There's 3 different colors. There's yellow, blue and red, those are your different heroes. If you have those, if you're playing those are the only type of colors that you can use. There's also a neutral color that you can put in there. I love that part of deck construction. I love, and then you're playing it out and you're tweaking it. Love that.
Yeah, and I think for Alex, who he hates deck construction, he liked playing Netrunner a lot, but he's like, I would never actually be into this game. I'll happily play it, but I'll never get into this game. I'll never build my own decks, construct my own decks. And so I think that that's something that he would not play this game for that reason. He'll have me build a deck or construct a deck for him ahead of time, and we can play it. But
same with Christina. So I talk about this in my podcast. I am a Magic player, and I'm on a quest to find a card game that gives me that deck construction feel, but it's a 2-player. And I've tried Ashes. She didn't like that. She kind of liked Pixel Tactics, but not really. And so when this one came along, I'm like, let's do it. Here's all of my cards, make a deck. And she's like, what?
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, you gotta, she goes, why would I want to do that? You make it, what? There should be decks already. And I'm like, no, that's not what this game's about. You gotta build the decks, and then you see the fruit of all your labor.
Yes.
You crush me with a mighty, mighty lightsaber because you put it in there, and she just wants me to make her a deck, and then we play it. That's just how she is.
And I definitely think it's a skill set, and it's not a skill set that's necessarily developed by board gaming, right? Because even deck builders, and again, we're making a distinction between deck building and deck construction, even deck builders, you're kind of just doing it on the fly. Whereas what I usually do, whether it's I'm building decks for Lord of the Rings, LCG or Netrunner or Ashes or this Star Wars Destiny, is I'm going through the cards, I'm looking for, okay, what are some cool interactions? How do I support that?
So I got a question, Sean. This might be a little bit of a tangent, but I want to have this picture in my mind's eye. Okay, so you are now in this. We have like a little podcast tourney.
Yes,
and we have to build a deck. So it's in the evening. You don't have a deck. Let's say you don't have a deck ready yet.
Okay,
and you got your cards. What do? Do you like pour yourself a beer? Do you like put all your? You have a binder? Do you have a binder out? Is the cards all out? How do you build your deck for Destiny?
That's a good question. And I'll tell you what, I don't have necessarily a good answer yet because I don't like any of my storage solutions because of the dice and the cards. Now,
that's true.
When you want to talk about my Magic collection. This Magic collection is incredibly well curated. I've got all of my rares and legendaries in binders. I've got a specific binder. Well, when I was playing Magic, I would have, here's my binder for standard tournaments. Here's my binder for Legacy. Here's my binder for Modern. Yeah. I've got several 5,000 card boxes because I used to buy a case of Magic cards every set. So six boosters every set.
You're preaching to the choir.
I know.
You're preaching to the choir.
So
this is a tangent. I'm sorry, but I recently had to sell a lot of my Magic cards, so I was like, "Oh, this hurts." But yes, I get it. So you have a binder.
So here right now, I kind of have a tackle box, and I'm not crazy about it because these are big, chunky dice.
They're like seasons. You played seasons, right?
Yeah. They're about
giant dice,
and they have like the laser printing on them. I mean, they look fantastic.
They feel so good too. Like they're I love rolling them.
Yeah. And so I don't like my storage solution. And I'm like, well, am I going to put these in binders? I don't know. So right now I have them organized in different deck boxes. So I have, here's all of my yellow cards, both neutral, hero, and villain, right?
Okay.
And so I know, okay, well, I'm playing with Amidala, so I'm going to need some yellow cards. And so I'll kind of go through those. And usually what winds up happening is I'll lay out, so you have to have 30 cards, right? 30 cards. Yep. You can't have more than 2 of one card in your deck. And so I'll lay them out and I'll group them around kind of a purpose. So this group of, 3 different cards is going to help me generate resources, or this group over here is going to help me with my offensive capabilities, things like that. I've got 40 cards. I need to prune down how am I going to do this? And that's
so basically you're like the Neo and you lay out and then the Matrix opens up to you and you're able to craft your deck.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. And then what I'll usually do once I've got my 30 cards, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do one more run through to see if there's some card that I missed. And part of that is because I don't necessarily know these cards really well. So like if I were to build a deck for Magic right now for the Elder Dragon Highlander or Commander format, which is what it's called, and I'm building a particular deck, I'm like, okay, well, I know I want these 40 cards. Like it's because it's a 100-card deck. I'm like, I know I'm going to want these. I know I'm going to want these. Here, I'm still, even though I've constructed like 4 or 5 different decks and I've played this a bunch, I still don't recognize every card by name. I still don't recognize every card by sight. I still have to, there's still a little bit of that. So,
but does that give you that, like when you initially got into Magic, does that give you that kind of that feel? Like the new, like the possibilities are endless kind of feel? Like it does me when I'm like, okay, I don't know everything yet, and there's all these cards, like mostly because they're not available. But I want to be able to get these cards, and I want to put them in this deck, or I want to try them out, and I don't know. It reminds me of back in the day when I first started Magic.
So it's interesting. I think maybe I'm just a much more jaded person now because I have probably spent the last 20 years trying to chase that initial feeling of discovery. Because I think especially when you're younger, right? Because I started playing Magic in the 7th grade and it was revised. The Dark and then Fallen Empires were the initial things that I was playing with.
Taking me back, baby.
Right? And so I didn't have a whole lot of disposable income at that point. And so when you're opening packs and you're like, oh man, I just opened a Shivan Dragon. I am the only person in my play group that has a Shivan dragon. I'm going to murder all of you. This is going to be amazing.
Dead.
Yeah. I have never been able to really recapture that for two reasons. Number one, now, I buy a lot more than I probably should. And number two, I'm almost frustrated. I'm almost frustrated that I don't have as strong a command of a new game like Netrunner or like, well, I say new. I mean, the new LCG version. Like I don't have that instant command that I might have been used to in Magic. And then I don't necessarily have the time to really get into these games because of the podcast.
Right.
So to me, like that's really frustrating. Like,
so I feel like this is like a complete, like this is a topic idea, right? That we're talking about. We actually got to get into the gameplay because that's what everybody wants to hear about.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's walk it back. Rob, what are your general impressions about Star Wars Destiny?
General impressions, man, I just want to get into the gameplay. I love the game. I love the deck construction. Now, let me preface it with this. I first experienced this game at Gen Con. I sat down with Marty from Rolling Dice and Taking Names, and we played this game. We demoed this game, and it was with the starter decks. And I have my own opinion about the starter decks, but we'll circle back around to that.
Okay.
And I just walked away like I don't care. Like it was okay. It had some neat ideas. I didn't care. But something happened, and I'm not 100% sure. Maybe we could flesh it out from that initial. The playthrough, and I was like, it's, to when it actually released and I saw all the different possibilities, I just got crazy about the game.
Okay.
So general impressions, I'm excited about it. What about you?
Yeah, for me, I was not interested in this game at all. And I've talked about this before in the podcast, but basically Dice Masters was something I enjoyed, but because there were the initial distribution issues, I couldn't get people to play it. And then they just were releasing way too many sets. And so I'm like, well, it's Star Wars. I love Star Wars. But if it's just going to be Star Wars Dice Masters, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then I heard people talking about it. And I was like, oh, okay, this sounds pretty interesting. And then Suzanne, of all people, talked me into it. And
God bless Suzanne.
and I was like, oh, this game's really good. And what I'll say is, and there's a certain style of Magic deck that I love. It's called a tempo deck. And it's, I had a legacy tempo deck, and essentially you're just trying to stay one step ahead of your opponent, either through playing some kind of denial, maybe it's land destruction, maybe it's bouncing lands back to their hand, but basically you're always just trying to stay one step ahead, and you're trying to keep them reacting to you. And it's a very, it's a game of incrementalism, I think, it was one of the best ways to describe it. So that's what I feel like here. You're not necessarily taking these big sweeping actions. It's just, I do this little thing, you do a little thing. I do a little thing, you do a little thing.
What do you think about that? What do you think about that back and forth?
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Me too.
I think there is such a dance to it, because one of the actions that you can take is activating your characters. Another action you could take is to discard a card to re-roll any of the dice that you've already rolled. And then there are different dice abilities. So some are doing damage, some are giving you resources. Some are letting you turn other dice to a particular facing. Some are letting you use a special ability that might let you remove an opponent's dice, put it back on their cards so they can't use it that turn. And so it's an interesting back and forth of, okay, I'm going to re-roll these dice. Cool, I rolled a bunch of range cards. Oh, now my opponent plays a dodge, which is a card that costs money, costs resources, that now removes all of my range cards. And so there's having to be aware of what they're capable of playing, what they have on the board. Maybe I don't want to use this dice to change this other dice, knowing that they can just get rid of that particular die. I love it. I love the back and forth.
And we haven't talked about it yet, but there's also the battleground, or that was what's called, right? The battleground, or that
battlefield.
Battlefield. That's also a thing you're keeping in mind the entire time, because depending on which battlefield that you're playing in, it's when do I want to end my turn?
Right.
Because that in itself, when you end and you're like, I'm going to claim the battlefield, you get that ability. And sometimes it's pretty cool. I mean, sometimes it's you discard some cards out of the player's deck, or you get to play a card. I mean, you get to play some sort of dice that maybe you have out there, or there's all kinds of different things. But that adds another level to it, because then you're trying to maybe it's something where they get to pull an upgrade out of their discard pile. You don't want your opponent to get that, so you're trying to get through your turn in a way that you can get that battlefield before they do, because they've got like maybe an engine going where they definitely want to claim the battlefield. I love that aspect of the game too.
Well, and what's cool is that's a part of deck construction too, because you have your deck of 30 cards, you have your heroes, and then you choose one of these battlefield cards. And at the beginning of the game, you do a roll-off to see who's going to be first player, who's going to get to use their battlefield card. So even though you're both bringing one to the table, you're only using one of them. And you're choosing that battlefield in theory to synergize with your deck. And so you would like to be able to have that. And I think that's just such a cool concept. And the battlefields they're not necessarily huge abilities. And they're
not huge.
And you're gonna both benefit from it from time to time. But the other thing I think is really cool, the really cool tension here is, on my turn, I want to be able to do more things than you, right?
Yeah.
But I also want to be able to do them faster than you, right? So that's an interesting tension. So if I have a bunch of range dice from different characters, I can resolve all like dice at the same time, which is pretty neat. So if I'm doing something where I resolve one dice, okay, then I resolve one dice. Now I resolve another dice. But you're resolving 3 or 4 dice at once. You're doing it faster than I am, you know?
But see, when you said that, I was just like, I immediately went to the opponent to that strategy. I'm like, yeah, I want you to get, I want to see all your cards, so to speak, on the table. I want to see that you have all this range getting ready to hit me. And now guess what? I got this card that makes all those range go away. So yeah, you go ahead and try to get in front of me, because I'm just waiting on you. Like, I love that.
Yeah. And so I think there's a very delicate balance to this, right? I mean, the first time I played this game, I was blown away. I was like, this is really excellent. It's a really solid game. So
yeah. So what do you think about the theme in this game? Do you think it's incorporated well?
Not really. I mean, it's Star Wars. I love Star Wars. You put Star Wars on anything, I'm going to be much more likely to enjoy it, because there are certainly times when a card feels thematic, the action makes sense. Like, for example, the Millennium Falcon it's not the Millennium Falcon. It's the Jump to Hyperspace. It has a picture of the Falcon on it. The Jump to Hyperspace immediately ends the turn, and it lets you swap one battlefield for the other. So now the battlefield that's been in play all game is now gone. That's cool. That's really cool, and that's certainly thematic. But when you've got, a deck of Leia and Amidala teaming up, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right. It doesn't, but it's Star Wars. At the end of the day, you're not buying this game because you want to see the theme implemented, just verbatim right into the game. You're buying it because of the Star Wars.
Right.
So I love the theme, but yeah, you're right. Like, some of these cards, you're just like, well, why would the lightsaber do that? Or, whatever. I get it. But
yeah. And I think, I enjoy saying, okay, now Leia is going to, shoot Vader for 3. That's cool. That's fine. I like that. But I mean, still, you put a Star Wars theme on top of something, I'm that much more likely to enjoy it. And it works, even though it's not necessarily a thematic narrative experience, I don't think.
So I guess we're jumping around a little bit. Can we talk about the rule book? The rule book that comes right into the starter decks. How did you feel about the rule book?
I was really annoyed. So okay. So there are 2 different starter decks that are available right now. There's the Rey starter deck, and there's the Kylo Ren starter deck. And one thing I would say is, basically, you have blue cards, which are your force users. You have yellow cards, which are supposed to be like your villain or your scum and villainy, smugglers, spies, things like that. And then you have red, which are command cards. So obviously, Kylo and Rey would be blue. Leia is red. Han would be yellow. Things like that, just for that, both a thematic thing and just for a gameplay purpose. So these starter decks are they're not a fully legal deck. The rules pamphlet there is kind of designed to help you learn the game, but it's not meant to be a reference. And I had no idea that there's actually a full-blown rulebook until you told me.
Right. Well, I had the same problem, but this to tie it back into Magic. Everybody's like, stop talking about Magic. I remember back in the day when we got Magic, and it was like it was like half the size of my hand rule book, and it kind of did the same thing. Like, it wasn't to be used as a reference, but this is kind of how you play.
Right.
This is the same thing. They can't pull the full-blown rule book. I don't know. They could, I guess. But yeah, like a lot of times when we first started, I was just like, well, this rule isn't really in here. It doesn't really explain it. And that was really frustrating for me. And then someone else told me, like, look, here's the full rule book. It's online. You can get it. You can get it at Fantasy Flight. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then I always went back to it. But at first, like, if I didn't know it was there, you're like, what? Come on. These rules are not good.
Yeah. And it's a 25-page PDF, and it fully explains everything. It has some FAQs. It has some clarifications. It's a it's a really solid rule book. And, you know, I think Fantasy Flight has gotten really good at writing rule books for these different card games. And, I mean, I definitely remember a ton of really bad CCGs in the 90s that just had horrible rule books. And then on the flip side, right, so now you have Magic, again, stop talking about Magic, that has a comprehensive rule book that is like 400 or 500 pages. Probably more now since the last time I read it.
You've got years and years and years of rules to put into it.
Right, exactly. This is so the actual rules PDF is really solid. You can be off to the races with the rules pamphlet just fine, but you're right, it's not quite clear. There are certain things that aren't quite clear.
Even with the starter decks and the pamphlet rules, which is like, I don't know, 2 pages. It wasn't very big. You're going to run into situations where you're like, well, how does that happen?
Right.
I mean, what do I do now? You're going to need to locate this PDF. And again, it's great.
I think so. And because it's not necessarily like a full rule book or rules reference, it's hard to reference it because it's kind of walking you through certain stuff, especially at the beginning of the setup and when the game's starting. And so it's hard to like, well, how many resources do we start with again? How does this work again? But you're right. People need to go find the PDF.
Now, we've talked about these awesome, chunky dice. What do you think about the artwork in the game?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's the typical Fantasy Flight Star Wars artwork. And I almost say that in a dismissive way, but it's not. I mean, it's just really solid. I have high expectations for Fantasy Flight, and in regards to art especially, and in no way does this let me down.
Yeah, no, I love the art. I mean, and it's, you know, it's you're right. Everything that you just said, it is correct. Like I just love Star Wars. So when I see kind of a new illustration of Jabba or a different angle of Han or whatever, I get really excited. So yeah, this incredible artwork.
Yeah. As far as the rest of the components go, I mean, you've got the dice, which are amazing. The standard Fantasy Flight thickness cardboard chits. So you have damage tokens, resource tokens, shields, etc. And then you've got the card. The card quality is fine. It's not great. They're not linen finish. I sleeved them. I sleeved mine. They're entirely adequate cards, but they're not great cards, I don't think.
No. But what they lack in the cards they got in dice. So
Yeah, exactly. You know, one thing I will say, I did pick up the Team Covenant acrylic tokens.
Yeah, those look nice. I had a buddy, he 3D printed a bunch of stuff out for me, and those looked really cool too. But yeah, I've seen yours. Yours are nice.
Yeah, I really like them. I have 2 sets of them for Netrunner that Team Covenant does, teamcovenant.com. They are on the ball when it comes to LCG style gaming, including Destiny. And it's a really cool set. It's a little pricey. It's like $30. I think I really wanted 2 sets, but $60 is a lot.
No, that is a lot, but they look nice, man. You look like a professional when you break those things out. Right? Those are nice.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet. So,
all right, we've talked about a lot of positive. Let's talk a little bit about the negative, real fast. The quantity of this game, Sean.
Yeah,
has scared lots of people off.
Yes, I think so.
I mean, they can't get the game. I mean, like Marty talks about on his podcast or his Twitter, because the man likes to tweet. He teaches people the game, but they can't get it. As of right now, that is, they can't get it, and they're like, I don't care.
Yeah, the starter sets just became available again, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that.
Yep.
The
And
first
those are $14.95 for those.
Right. And the next or the first expansion, Spirit of Rebellion, is supposed to be available in May, and then in June, the main set is going to be available again in booster form. And so the starter decks are fixed. You know exactly what you're going to get in it, whereas the booster packs have 5 cards and 1 dice. So there are 3 commons, 1 uncommon, and then a rare card and its dice, or 1 in 6 boosters will have a legendary card and its dice. So
now, I always like to talk about the value of these things when we kind of talk about it. So like you can get a booster pack, which again are some cards and 1 die. That is like on a cool stuff, it's like a $2.99, or you can, and again, all this stuff is out of stock, but a 106 will get you a giant box of boosters, and that comes with 36.
36. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, so what I've opened, I have 4 starters. I have 2 Rey, 2 Kylo, and I've opened 1 box. And I'm able to put together a decent couple decks. But I don't think I can really put together more than 2 at a time.
I agree. I just have the 2 starters and a box and maybe like a couple more. Like getting that box, man, was just like this guy in an alley going, "Hey, you want some Destiny?" He opens up his jacket. I'm like, "Well, I guess so," you know. So it was hard to get, but I got a box. So yeah, and I have 2 solid decks and then a third one that's like just a throwaway. But yeah, you know. Yeah, that's what you've got with that amount of cards.
So if they're available to you at this price, would you want one more booster box? 2 more?
Oh, see now,
4 more?
Well, the answer is yes, but you know, being that we're podcasters, we're spending a lot of money. I mean, yes, we both have Patreons, but that all goes towards just having a podcast. So, and then we use that for prize support too. So most everything I buy is coming out of my pocket.
Sure.
So yes, I want to. I would want one. I would want 1 more box of the first Awakenings. That was the first expansion. And I'm probably going to get 2 boxes. I hope Christina doesn't download. I want her. Go listen to Dukes of Dice, but I hope she doesn't listen to this episode. I kind of want to get 2 boxes of each set. I might get more. I did buy some singles. Now, back in the days of Magic, I never bought singles because I just was against it. But I couldn't get it, and I really wanted to get in to play it. So I did buy singles. But I think I'm just going to stay maybe buying 2 boxes and expansion. That being said, the expansion that just got announced, the Empire at War, has a Sabine in it. I don't know if you watch Star Wars Rebels at all, but I got to get that Sabine.
I don't have Disney, so no, unfortunately. Although I'm eventually I will be watching Rebels.
Yes, if you're a Star Wars fan, because there's a lot of like, oh, so that's what happens. And of course, they were in that you can kind of see them, the ships in Rogue One, but that's a definite watch. But we're not a Star Wars, or you're not a Star Wars podcast. But the Sabine Wren, I got to get that card. I'm excited just about that set when that comes out at the end of the year.
So now that we're kind of picking some bones of the game, the other thing too is. So we've got obviously the availability issues, right? We've got the collectability nature of the game. Now, I really feel like the way that the rarity distribution works is really rough because
it's super rough. Sean.
So obviously, it's a little bit easier than Magic, right? Magic, you need 60 cards in a deck, and you can have 4 copies of a card. Here, it's basically cut that in half, right? 30 cards in a deck, no more than 2 copies of each. But for example, for some of your heroes, you want to use 2 dice, which means you basically need 2 of them, right? Right. If you have what does a Darth Vader go for? Like $40, $45, something?
I mean, right now it's probably at the $40 or $50 mark. I haven't checked it in a while, but that might plunge a little bit once they reprint it.
Hopefully.
But right now it's about hopefully. Right now it's about 40 or 50.
So if you want to run a Darth Vader deck and you don't open any Darth Vaders, well, there's, $80, $90 that you're going to have to pay if you want to do that. And certainly that's going to be, that's going to be a point of contention for some people. But put that aside, put the singles aside for a second. So you're getting 5 cards in a pack. You're getting 3 commons, 1 uncommon, just 1 uncommon. And the uncommons are sweet. Like, That's
Yeah,
where
they're good.
Like, to me, that's like a huge choke point. The fact that I'm only, not forced choke point, where I'm only getting one uncommon. And so basically uncommons are almost as rare as rares in that kind of sense. It's not
as
quite
of right
true.
now, yeah.
But then on top of it, you have a ton of the legendary cards, and you're only getting one of 6 rares that they're replacing, right? And so, and when I say there's a ton of them, I mean it's a ton relative to the size of the set. So, for example, like a normal set of Magic will have 15 mythic cards compared to 225 cards in total. I forget what the actual numbers are here, but the legendaries in this game are a much higher percentage of the overall size of the set, which makes them they're much harder to chase. Is my point. Long story short, they're harder to chase, and that's kind of frustrating to me.
So I'm just kind of looking up as you were talking on eBay. Darth Vader's going from 35 to 60. So I mean, it's about that price. Hard to get, and Darth Vader's a sweet card. Now is it OP? Now, I mean, you could beat a Darth Vader, but if you want to build a Darth Vader deck, you're probably going to buy a single, because trying to go out and get it the normal means, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I'm not at a point where I've purchased singles yet. What I'm hoping, and this is the problem, right? I have at least one person who's going to play with me when these are available again, Rory, who owns Empire Board Game Library. And I'd like to get 2 other people involved, because I'd like us all to buy a couple boxes each. We get the things that we want, and then maybe we can fill holes in each other's collections with some trading.
Are you getting some traction on that? Like, are you asking people?
I'm asking, and I have a couple non-committal. Maybe we'll see, and that's fine. And I totally understand it, right? I totally get it, because now you're on the hook. Like, if you're really going to do this, and I'm buying 2 boxes a set, if that's the plan, and I think that's the plan, and then maybe I'm spending $50 on singles. That's a lot. I need to be playing this game a lot, right?
Yeah, and we're adults. Like, we have a job, we've got a family, which we will talk about later in this episode. But you just don't have time to do that. I've played the game in person one time at RobCon. All my other play has been Skype. By the way, Sean, we could play again in Skype if you would like to.
By all means.
If you're looking for people to play, I will play with you.
Totally.
But but it's Skype is not as fun as in person. Seeing the cards in front of you right across from the table. But I don't have time to do that. So, my only play right now is Skype, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
That was a tangent.
Yeah, so I mean, there are some things to really love about this game. But like I said earlier, I know that right off the bat, a lot of the listeners are, I mean, this isn't going to be their bag because of that collectible nature. I mean, a lot of people don't like the whole LCG format where you're getting pretty much everything you need, but it's a core set, and then it's a bunch of monthly small expansions, and then it's a quarterly large expansion or whatever. And here you're rolling the dice, so to speak. That was not intended, to crack open these blind packs to see what you get. And a lot of the industry has moved away from that model.
Well, but it's working right now for Destiny. So as a listener of Dukes of Dice, what I want to know as we transition to final thoughts, I think, what is this Sean's bag? Is Sean going to be playing this game?
Yeah, I think so. And it's going to be, it's going to be highly dependent, number one, on who in my local group is going to play. Like if I can have a local group. But in the past with this style of game, I haven't really explored that much online play, that much Skype play. So like you mentioned, there's kind of a podcasters group that you guys finished one tournament up not too long ago, a new one starting up that I'm involved in. Very excited for that. So maybe, if I can have a good amount of time split between the two, I think that if I were to rate this game, I'm going to rate it right now. So we have a 6-point rating system, which should be very comfortable for you, Rob, since you guys have that over on yours. A 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. A 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10. For me, this is going to be a very strong 5, which I would call a great game will rarely turn down a play of it. And there are some elements of gameplay here that I absolutely love. It's not necessarily that the collectible nature of it is keeping it back from being a 6 for me. I think that there are other, Magic is a 6, hands down. Android Netrunner is a 6. Old L5R, Legend of the Five Rings, is a 6. This new, I don't know if you saw any of the new stuff that came out today or yesterday.
I did. I was checking it out, but
holy cow.
I've never played it. Like that was one of the ones. I played everything else but that one. So I gotta
holy cow. It is a very, very different game. Anyway, this isn't quite there. It might become a 6 based on new expansions that come out, variability in terms of deck type and things like that. But right now, this is a very solid 5. I love this game. I love that I can play this quickly. I can't wait till I have a local group. It's a Wednesday night. We've got a half hour left. Hey, you want to play a quick game of Destiny? I cannot wait for that. And I'm hoping that's going to be able to happen. So very solid 5 for me.
Now, Sean, I'm not going to put you on the spot. In our podcast, every time we do the rating, we make one of us do some sort of obnoxious way to explain the rating system. I'm not going to do it. I was going to, but I was like, oh no, that might be bad. So, giving your rating, I'm going to give it a 5 as well. Great game. Really turned down a play of it. I love this game, but I love this type of game. Actually, if I could give it a split rate, I might give it a 4 to 5. But you're asking me, and I'm going to tell you what I want. So 5, I wouldn't turn down a play of this game. Yes, it would be great if everybody that I played, like my gaming groups, nobody plays this. That being said, we have a gaming group here in Roanoke, Virginia called Rage. That they're all from. I don't know if you're familiar. You're with Magic, so you're familiar with Star City Comics or Star.
Oh yeah.
So they're in my backyard, big Magic people. They're also into Destiny. So that there is a group in Roanoke that just plays that all day long. I can't get to it, but no one in my group is playing it. So the only way that I play this is Skype. I'm still giving it a 5, even with the scarcity of the cards. I can't get any right now. But just I love this game. This is scratching my Magic itch. I'm not going to go all neck deep in this game like I did Magic, but absolutely love it. I will play it, and like you said, like that even got me excited. What you just said, yeah, you've just had a game, you've had a day of gaming, you're wrapping it up, you got like a half hour. Hey, do you want to play a quick round of Destiny? Yes, I do. That's what I want. I'm giving it a 5, Sean.
Cool. All right. Well, a pair of 5s from Rob and Sean. That's going to do it for our review of Star Wars Destiny. Definitely has a place for some gamers, maybe not for all, but strong recommendations from both of us. All right, this week for our Dukes Double-Take, we're going to be taking a look back at episode 89, Grande Ole Opry.
Okay, I want to stop you. Stop you, Sean.
Okay.
In our podcast, we have the reroll, which is a lot like the double take.
Sure.
But when we start the reroll, Christina and Patrick sing a song. I don't know if I put you on the spot, but a Dukes, a double take ditty.
A double take ditty. Okay, here we go.
A double take ditty. If you could do now, it might make some of your listeners mad, but I want to hear it.
Okay, all right, here we go. Dukes, double take ditty. Dukes, double take ditty. How's that?
I liked it. It was a good start. You're going to get at least one person like, please, Sean, don't do that.
Everyone loves it when I sing of one variety or another.
I appreciate it. If you ever have an episode where you're doing outtakes, that one has to be somewhere in it.
Good times. and I know, and you're the biggest fan though of the reroll song, so I'm glad that you were the one to suggest the double takes ditty.
Sometimes they land it. Like sometimes they because sometimes we'll talk about a song, but sometimes they're like, we got it, we're just gonna do it. And they land it. I'm like, but most of the time it's just Jeremy and I just like we have our hands. This is an audio, so you don't see me, but you got our hands on our eyes, and we're just looking down. And then sometimes I don't know what song they sang. Like I don't have a clue. Yeah. And they try to explain it to me. I'm like, I don't care. Let's just re-roll this song. So yeah, I wanted to see you do it. I wanted to see another podcast do it. Thank you, Sean.
I am more than happy to accommodate. More than happy. So I think that's all going to be longer than the actual Double Take itself, which is hilarious. So we reviewed back in episode 89 the El Grande Big Box. This was from Z-Man Games, designed by Wolfgang Kramer and Richard Ulrich. And Wolfgang Kramer, we talked about before. He did Pharaoh's Gulo, right?
That's right.
Yeah, two very different games, I'm sure.
Right.
And a year ago, Alex gave this a 5. He called this his favorite area control game, although don't get too excited because he's not a big fan of area control to begin with. And he said that this had a great depth to complexity ratio. I gave this a 5. I called it a solid 5, and I was eager to play more of the expansions. This is a fantastic game. I mean, it is a modern classic. I think it came out late 90s, early 2000s. We talk all about it in the episode. And basically there is some card selection, which is letting you in various ways place some of your caballeros, your little meeples, out onto these different regions of Spain, or to move them around, or to pick them up, or to do all sorts of different things. And then there are some determined periods where you're going to then score these different regions and score some points. Lots of different options here. And I think Alex is right. There's a fantastic depth to complexity ratio here, because this is very much, if I'm just doing the main game, not any of the expansions, I think this is a very solid gateway game, whereas a more seasoned gamer, I'm still going to enjoy the different options and decisions I have to make here. So, Rob, any thoughts on El Grande Big Box?
Oh, Sean, I've never played it.
Oh, man.
I've never played it. I've seen it. Didn't this hit Kickstarter with all the expansions at one point? I feel like I saw. I might be making that up.
I can't remember. I don't know if it was on Kickstarter. I didn't Kickstart it. I think Z-Man just released it.
Man, I feel like that at one point, and I could be making that all up, but I feel like I saw it at one point, and I was like, I've seen it on a table, and I'm like, yeah, I really want to kind of check this out, but I just never have. I know Patrick likes it. It just wasn't. I never gotten to my table.
Now, I will say that I haven't played. So at the time, I played one of the expansions in the big box, and that's the appeal of the big box, right? Is that you're getting multiple expansions that have come out over the years in this one package. I haven't played this game in the last year. I haven't played any more of the expansions. I'm not going to change my rating. I'm going to keep it a 5 because certainly I do think it's a great game. I mean, it is a fantastic kind of area control game where it's the meat of it, and that's the core of it, and that's the focus of it, right? It's not area control plus a little bit of this or area control plus a little bit of that. It's just kind of, I think, the quintessential Euro area control game, and I think it's really solid. And because it is so easy to teach, I will happily play this game. I won't turn down a play of it. It's a really solid game.
Could you channel your inner Alex? What would he give it now? Yeah, no clue.
Here's what yes, I can absolutely channel my inner Alex.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
I forgot we ever played this game.
But this is a game?
I'm gonna drop it to a 4. I don't even remember the review, but I'm gonna drop it to a 4.
I love it.
I better be careful because Alex comes back next week.
Exciting stuff. He's got stories.
You are our last special guest, Rob.
I'm feeling good or bad. I don't know how to take that.
So yeah, I'm curious to see what kind of crap he's going to give me for invoking his name at random times throughout his absence. I just said absence really weird. I said absence when I meant absence. Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That's all right. You can edit all this out. Well, you can blame this particular instance of channeling Alex or talking bad about him on me because I asked you to do it.
All right, fair enough. So this week we're going to go over and discuss the role of relationships and families in board games, but first, a quick word about our sponsor. One of the things that I miss most is lying to his face and watching him believe it. I also miss playing Sheriff of Nottingham with him. Heyo! But seriously, let's talk about Sheriff of Nottingham for a minute. It is a Dutchy favorite after all. Sheriff is a game about bluffing, smuggling, and some set collecting. Each round, one of you takes on the role of the sheriff and the others are trying to get goods into town. You tell the sheriff what you have in your secret bag, or maybe you lie about it. If the sheriff catches you in the lie, he has to pay a penalty. Yikes, but if you're caught lying, you dirty, dirty liar you, then you have to pay that penalty. is just one of the awesome games in Arcane Wonders' Dice Tower Essentials line. It's a fantastic game that the Dukes love to play. It's helped turn my 15-year-old into a fantastic liar. It's just one of the awesome games in Arcane Wonders' Dice Tower's Essential line. Check out the rest of them at arcanewonders.com, and while you're at it, give Sheriff of Nottingham a look. All right, this week for our discussion topic, since we've got Rob from Blue Peg Pink Peg, your show has a lot of great board gaming content, but in addition to that, because of the nature of how it started, right, there's a focus on board gaming and relationships, right?
Yep. So that's the tagline. It's we're a podcast about board games and relationships and the interactions between the two.
Sure.
So we started out, and this is interesting. We started out as two married couples that got together that played board games, and we talked about how board games are incorporated in our relationships, with our families. Relationships are a lot of things. That's friends. That's in-laws. I got so many funny stories about just playing with my in-laws. Just, all types of people. And, that's some of the things that we talk about in it. It's just like, I'm really interested in just the relationship aspect of board gaming. So, for example, I can kind of tell the story how Christina and I first met. Okay, we actually met online. It was that's random, but we started talking, and then we met in a bar. But that's another totally. But we started talking. We got to get to know you, and she goes, "So, what do you do? What do you do for fun?" And I was just like, "Well, I board game," and she's like, huh, and then she asks those questions that every board gamer, when they say that to a person who doesn't know what board gaming is, always ask. One of the questions she asks goes, "It's not like Dungeons and Dragons, is it?" And I'm like, no, of course it was. That's what I was doing. But when we started dating, this board gaming is kind of an important part in my life, and I introduced her to it. So why did I do that? Like, I feel like board games, bringing them into like a relationship. So let's take kids out of it. You're not watching TV, you're not, because you're not talking to each other. You're not engaging each other when you're watching TV. You're sitting down across from someone and you are just, you're interacting, you're playing with the game. You're having lots of laughs. But it just brings a family together. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
So let me ask you a question. I want to hear a little backstory, a little origin story on you. How did you and your wife Raquel? That's right, Raquel?
Yeah.
How did you guys start to? You guys game together? Because I heard, by the way, high five playing Colonists with her. I got to do that too. Super excited about that. But how did you guys start to game? How did you introduce or bring board game into your relationship?
Well, I mean, very similar to you, right? We met online. She sent me a Facebook request, and I'm like, friend request. I'm like, oh, hey. And then I'm like, hey, you want to go grab a drink? And so we met at a bar after meeting online.
Man, there's a pattern.
I know, right? And so our third date was on a Wednesday night. And at the time, Wednesday night was Magic night for me because it was the Commander format. And I went every Wednesday night. And so I said,
not that Wednesday.
Oh, I went that Wednesday.
Oh, never mind.
So Raquel and I, we went to this tapas place. We had some margaritas, we had some tapas, and I said, hey, and I kind of already broached the fact that I like to play games. And she'd even said, oh, I kind of dabbled in D&D sort of a bit, but not really. And, but that was the extent of it. Right. And so I said, well, so Wednesday nights, I usually go play Magic. Would you be interested in coming to check it out? And she's like, yeah, totally. I'm like, oh, okay.
Will you marry me? No.
So we went and played Magic, and she.
What did she think of it?
So she was familiar with it, and she was fine. I mean, she was totally fine with it. Like, it definitely wasn't something that she was interested in doing herself, but she was fine with it. And then as time went on, I started to transition more into board games. I mean, because so at various points in my life, it was either board games or miniatures or Magic or whatever. And now I was starting to transition back into board games. And so we would play Lords of Waterdeep, or we would play the Manhattan Project, or we would play Smash Up or Coup or The Resistance, whatever. And so as we kept dating, I mean, board games were very much the focus. And my now stepdaughter, Mariah, she was 11, 12 when Raquel and I first started dating, and she would get involved too, right? So, I mean, for the most part, our entire relationship gaming has been a big part of it, a huge part of it.
Now, do you have a family game night? Do you try to work those in? Or is it because you're so busy, podcasts, all that stuff? Are you able to do that at all?
Yeah, not really. So now we're at a point where Mariah will certainly, Mariah's played the Colonists, right? Mariah is a solid gamer, very solid gamer, but it's not always her favorite thing to do. And certainly the Colonists is not something that wouldn't be her first pick, but she's like, yeah, I'd play it again. She likes some kind of lighter games, and that's totally fine. In fact, Raquel and I have a rule. If Mariah is going to play with us, she gets to pick. She absolutely gets to pick because we're just more than happy that she's playing with us. And so
yeah, of course.
We have no agenda. Whatever she wants to do, that's what we'll do. We tried to do a campaign of Arcadia Quest, but that didn't quite work out. So at this point, if Mariah is down for a game, great. However, the big problem, and when I say problem, I mean problem, is the tomorrow 3-year-old. She's going to be 3 tomorrow. And she wants to play games so badly. She really does. And to the point where we can't play a game around her. We just can't. So I'll have her on my lap. I'll say, hey, can you move this piece over here? Can you hold these cards? And there's a good 5-10 minutes where she's solid, and then she just wants to do her own thing. Yeah. And so that's been the hard part. And so we don't have a family game night. It used to be that Raquel and I would play a Feld game or play some solid, meaty game 4 nights a week. And that's dropped down dramatically since Chewy turned, I'd say, 1.5 years.
Yeah, well, life. Well, here's a great thing about a 3-year-old. They go to bed eventually. But what's exciting there, though, what you say, I really want to play a game. So now you've got this little one who's going to grow. And that's how my daughter Harper started. She's 6 now, but she started off where she was just like, and we would have her sitting in her lap. Now, of course, it's hard to play those meaty games with a bunch of bits.
Right.
They're like, she's playing with them. You know, what we would do is we would, and I'm saying in quotation mark, play with her. And we would give her her own set of bits, but she wasn't doing anything, you know?
Yeah.
So, but she's interacting with you. But yeah, I can see, like, you know, you're going to have to take some time away from all your, because sometimes, I'm going on a tangent, but sometimes I'm like, I'll get to a point, like after 2 weeks of playing Hobbit games, Blue Orange games. I love those games. I love spending time with my daughter, but I'm like, I've got to play something meaty. Like, I've got to play, you know, you're getting ready to enter that. That's going to be, you have a podcast, but you're going to be talking a lot about kids games here shortly.
And you know what? I'm very excited for that. But I definitely get your point that eventually you're just like, okay, I need something meaty. So we have one Hobbit game right now. It's called The Counting Game. Is that what it's called?
I've never heard of that one.
And it's some simple game. There's a puzzle. There's this, it's these 6 large puzzle pieces that you put together. So that's a cool thing. She loves that. And then there's this track, and you're supposed to roll this big chunky wooden dice that has a picture of a cow, a pig, sheep, whatever. And then you're supposed to count how many of these tokens of that particular animal are there. And you collect clovers. I don't know, because I've never actually played the game, because she just likes to put the puzzle together. And then what we do is we roll the dice, and then we just collect whichever animal matches that die roll. And that's the game that we made up. And right now she likes putting the puzzle together, and she's down with taking turns. So I'm like, okay,
but you're getting her started.
That's a solid start for me. So yeah.
So let's take a little detour. Something else I want to talk about in regards to relationships is that the board games also help a lot too. And if you've followed our podcast, I did say we started off as 2 married couples. We are not that now.
Right.
We're not 2 married. We're not a podcast that has 2 married couples. Christina and I, of course, still are. But, and so is Patrick. Patrick and Carrie, that's who we started off. But they went through a time where they separated, possibly getting a divorce. Mm-hmm. And that was a sad time.
Sure.
But Patrick stayed with me for a while. But a lot of it was distraction. It was 2 buddies sitting around playing board games. I've also heard stories of some of our peg heads, which are people listening to our show, where they're in the hospital, or they're in the hospital with a family member, and they're like, I got to distract them. Watching TV isn't going to distract them from the pain or whatever. Bring board games. And like, what board games should I bring? And they bring maybe some light card games, but even that, like, it's just those relationships that, the board games help that out. They help out in time of stress or sadness or stuff like that, where just families can get around and just be distracted, I guess.
Yeah. And I know, so I haven't used board games as a distraction, but I know that for me, it's something that re-energizes me and unwinds me. And I'm sure that in that type of situation, it would certainly serve that purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's something else that you just said that's interesting. It does energize you. Like, sometimes after a hard day, I'm just like, you know what, I kind of just want to... Now, people do that. People veg out in front of a TV, but my veg out is just in front of a game. So, like, I've got all this stuff in my head. I've got, bosses yelling at me. I've got things I got to do. And it's nice just to focus all that stress and all that energy into figuring out, how to get the most points in a failed game or something like that. Like, that, it does help you focus that stress sometimes. I mean, that's another thing that, it does for you, I guess, in the family setting, in the relationship setting, is that you're using those to, as a group, I guess, play it. I guess I'm kind of spinning off there a little bit, but yeah.
So, I mean, what kind of games do you and Christina usually play, if it's just the two of you? Other than Voluspa.
Okay.
Sorry. Voluspa!
We like, there's because I guess we're kind of the exception, because the podcast, we're always playing these 2-player games. We enjoy... I'm just kind of looking at my collection as we sit here. Well, we love Seasons. Mm-hmm. That's one game. That's one card game that we like to play together. This is kind of a deck construction, kind of, but we like to play Seasons. She's a big fan, and this isn't a 2-player game, but she's a big fan of Galaxy Trucker.
Yeah. Which
is just chaotic fun, building machines, building these ships, playing that. I'm trying to think of is there 2-player games that you like to play?
Well, so for the most part, if it's up to Raquel, she wants to play a Feld. In fact, she's constantly saying, hey, I need to play a Feld. Very often, she'll say to me, what is it that you need to play for the podcast? And she's right there. I mean, there's a lot of times where, she's kind of my 2-player guinea pig. I need to be able to teach this Media Euro game. And so she'll kind of help me play it 2 players so I can teach others. But then every now and then she's like, I need to play Trajan. We just need to play Trajan. I need to play Trajan right now. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let's play Trajan. So
and that's us too. Like, when we review a game, we will try to play it 2 players, just so that we have that to talk about. Like, okay, here's how the game works with 4, 3 players, and this is how we like it as 2, or we don't like it as 2, because I think that's kind of important.
Absolutely.
For a lot of people listening. Like, can I play this with my spouse? Can I play this with my partner? And so now, again, we're so busy. Our go-to really is Voluspa. Like, when I say, we broke it out, because we're actually still playing that a lot, but most of it is just trying out any kind of game at 2 players and seeing how it plays.
Yeah, no, I think so. So, what about with Harper? I mean, so how old is Harper?
Harper's 6.
Okay.
And she loves board games. And right now, I mentioned Pharaoh's Gulo. She's really big into this kind of a silly game from Blue Orange right now, which is Go-Go Gelato. We were sitting at dinner just last night, and Christine and I were kind of talking about, we weren't arguing, but it was just kind of like you could tell we were stressed out about whatever we were talking about. And Harper goes, hey, after dinner, because she could tell that kids are smart. They're intuitive. Yeah. She's like, hey, can we play Go-Go Gelato after dinner? And we were just like, yes. And we stopped talking about whatever was bothering us. And she loves that game. And it's basically a game where you're putting together these cones of gelato, and there's different colors of scoops and different colors of cones, and you're flipping a card and you're flipping these cones and scoops around to make it match the card. Kind of like junk art, but with scoops of gelato. And she just loves it. She just laughs. And man, that just makes my heart just warm. It's just I'm a lucky man that I'm playing board games with my daughter and she's laughing and she has a good time. And I don't know. I feel lucky sometimes, but that's what she likes to play, that kind of stuff. And like I said earlier in the episode is, on Sundays, she just likes to go do that. She'll go there, and it's funny when people come over and ask us at the coffee shop when we're playing board games and ask us, before I can say anything, she's like, yeah, this is Tumble Tree and this is how you play it. And I can tell that sometimes, especially with some of these dexterity games, that she hams it up a bit just so people will come over and ask us what we're playing. But I mean, she's got Christina and I as parents, so she's going to be a hand.
Sure.
But, I love spending that time with her. And, and it's funny when we reviewed, and this was, I don't know, a while ago, we reviewed Descent. And she came over and saw all the miniatures and the dice. She's like, I want to play this. And I'm like, okay. And so I came up with like a little version of it, but I found myself doing this. I go and I buy games just for her to play later on. I've got everything like Imperial Assault and Descent that's out. I don't play it right now. I'm buying it for when she gets old enough to play it. Now, if she does a flippity cups on me and decides she doesn't want to play this later on, I might be in a little bit of trouble. But I find myself just buying stuff just for when she gets a little bit older. So she's, might be my 2-player partner coming up, where it's like we'll sit down and, and she really is right now on Sundays. So I don't remember what your original question was, though.
Well, no, I think you answered it, and I'm kind of the same. I have a copy of Mice and Mystics, which I have not even really even taken a look at, because I'm like, well, at some point she may want to play this, and she may not, and that's fine. I know that she wants so badly to participate in board games. Chewy does, and I mean, so much so that she's constantly getting into my games. I came home today with Raquel telling me, hey, she got into this particular game. I'm like, oh, okay. And then she came up to me and she said, Dad, come with me to the room. I have something to show you. I'm like, oh, boy. Because she knows she's not supposed to. Like, she totally knows. And so I came in and she had completely opened up my copy of Sushi Go and Mafia de Cuba all over the floor. I was like, okay. And so
do you have some sacrificial games that you can put up as a buffer?
Yes, we do. But she knows what they are. She knows the difference. And so I have a game that I play now, and it's double check the component list versus what's on the floor. And I've gotten really good at that game. I can tell you what I'm missing from certain games. I'm currently missing a button from Patchwork, which is one of Raquel's favorite games. She was not pleased.
Christina loves Patchwork. I'm glad you mentioned that. She loves Patchwork.
Oh, yeah. So that's my favorite game recently.
So one more other thing, with being that you're, the gamer guy, I guess, maybe in your family, does your extended family that maybe are not into gamer, do they come to you and they're like, all right, we have a holiday gathering. Sean, what games are you going to bring?
Yeah, not really. So it's kind of interesting. Growing up, there was a ton of game playing, but I mean, we're talking blackjack and poker, and stuff like that. Like, we're always playing cards, right? And the couple times I tried to introduce some other stuff, didn't quite work out. So I tried Dominion. One time my dad played Battle Lore, the first edition, with me. That was a bit much. He wasn't crazy about it. I mean, I've definitely tried some lighter stuff, and it's never been something that's caught on. They'll kind of do it.
Is there any particular reason, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, they're comfortable with some of these card games. Now, they're certainly bright enough, smart enough, whatever, but for whatever reason, I can tell they're just kind of humoring me. And if it's like a multi-round game, they'll finish like the first round or two and be like, okay, well, I think that's good. We get how it plays. That's fine.
Oh, no, that makes me sad.
Yeah, it's fine. I do have what I would call some non-gamer friends. So I was actually on Monday, I flew out to Phoenix. My friend's father passed away. Really close friend. I wanted to go out there to support him. We also went out there a couple of years ago for Thanksgiving. And so his 3 boys kind of know that, if Sean's coming, he's probably bringing games. So I wanted to bring some games, and we didn't wind up playing anything other than Happy Salmon. but the boys loved it. They absolutely loved it. So I'm like, here you go, have it, because you guys are going to have a lot of fun with this. So I think there's an expectation for some people that I'm going to bring games. But yeah, for my family, it's just not something they want to do. And, I mean, my grandpa loves to gamble. He taught me how to play craps when I was 14. And and craps is a hard game. I mean, he knows all of the odds, what the dealer should be paying him. I mean, he knows all that. Yeah. He's super sharp, but he could not play coup. There's no way he could play a game like coup. He just couldn't do it. And I don't know. I couldn't tell you why.
Well, Christina is that person that her friends go to bring games. So, as I mentioned, she's in roller derby. And sometimes the derby ladies can be a salty bunch. And now, whenever we have a gathering, we're bringing... You haven't seen Werewolf played until you see a room full of angry derby girls playing Werewolf, or a Secret Hitler, or a Two Rooms and a Boom. I was in the other room and I heard people screaming. I don't know what they were screaming about, but they were just yelling at each other.
Nice.
But now, like, Christina is that person in that group to, hey, we want to get together. We don't want to just sit around and drink. We want to do something together. And so Christina is that person that's like, hey, let's play board games. And we get together with the Derby Girls once every couple months where we just have a big group like that. And that's kind of brings it, I guess, back home, put a point on it, a bow on it, is that, board games is a way for people to have some sort of relationship with each other, friends, family, whatever, to just be together, experience a thing together, have fun together. That's not just vegging out.
Yeah. And there are times, like at the end of the night, I want to be able to sit on the couch for an hour and watch an episode of something on Netflix.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying that that's bad.
Right.
And I've been watching a lot of Netflix here lately, but yeah, board games, though, it gives you something else to do.
Now, and we should go over to the guild here in a second, but before we do that, I think I want to point out, what about for those people where their significant other is just not interested or doesn't want to play?
We get that question a lot, and there's really no easy answer. So, like, for example, your grandpa, super smart guy, just doesn't take to gaming. Sometimes people just don't take to it. There's the entry level games, of course.
Sure.
There's some, someone plays some type of game in some form. Maybe it's a crossword puzzle. Hey, there's lots of different word games out there. Maybe it's a card game, whether it be hearts or spades. Man, there's a ton of trick-taking games out there. So people play some form of it. You just gotta keep trying. Eventually, you'll find something. Or if you don't, you got to make some friends. go to a local gaming group and find it that way. But I know what you're saying. Like, sometimes you're like, hey, I love this hobby. I want my spouse to be in it. Just try. Keep trying. Find something and then they'll like something eventually.
Sure.
Hopefully.
And while I think it's amazing to be able to share this hobby with my wife, with my family, I think that there's also couples need their own things sometimes. And so maybe that's what this can be for you. If your significant other isn't into board games, hopefully they can at least be supportive of you, and in turn you can be supportive of them, doing something else. So
yeah, like Christina. I'm lucky that Christina is into board gaming, but she's got her derby. I used to do improv a lot, so yeah, you can have your separate things too.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's head on over to the guild to see what they had to say. And they had a lot to say. Obviously, this is a very intimate, personal kind of discussion here. And I'm really excited to see what they had to say. So Dave S. says, I mainly play games with my wife, and we try and play a lighter or medium weight game over dinner throughout the week. And on the weekends, we try to get at least one heavier game in. Her gaming interests are the main driving force behind my purchasing decisions. I think about whether it will play well with two, whether she'll like the theme, and how much take that it has, since we don't like to negatively impact each other in a game. It's given us a great outlet to spend time together instead of just, like we said, watching TV while we eat, and it's great having a supportive spouse, which I know is pretty lucky to have.
Yeah, it is lucky to have. Steve O'Rourke says, I've made a conscious effort this year to have a family gaming always be available but never expected. The offer to play always stands, but don't be annoyed if it isn't accepted. Family games happen on a family's terms and not mine. If I want them to join me, I can't just invite them. I should make it genuinely inviting. If my wife, son, and daughter all decline, that has to be cool. Learn what they like and give them the chance to have fun and playing it with you. Add games to your collections that are weight, theme, and length that they will enjoy. Don't judge or look down on their choices. It doesn't feel good when others do that to you, so don't do that to them. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and that's like what I said about with Mariah. You know, if she wants to come to the table to play, she's in charge. She's got control of what we're playing. So Chris K says, years ago, my wife was really into Catan. Since then, I've introduced her to other board games, but with diminishing success. Lightweight, party, strategy, two-player, card games. The game type doesn't seem to matter. She's just not that interested. She tolerates my obsession, but rolls her eyes whenever I make plans to play with friends. It's a real bummer because not only do my games just sit on the shelf, but it also means I don't get to share this great hobby with her. And I think we kind of, touched on that. Not every significant other is necessarily going to be into it. And certainly, I mean, in his case, he's tried a bunch. But as long as, you guys can still be supportive of one another and hobbies and things like that, I think there's some room to operate there.
Right. I really liked this one from D. Shannon Barry. For me, board games is all about family. My dad is the one who got me into board games as an adult, and it really has strengthened my relationship with him and my brother, giving us something in common to bond over every time we're able to get together. Even more significantly, board games have given my dad a great way to connect with my children. He doesn't get to see them as often as he likes, but they are always looking forward to a new board game from Granddaddy under the tree or on their birthday. Knowing that he took the time to pick out something just for them, my 8-year-old son sees his granddad as an ultimate board game nemesis and will strategize for an entire year plotting to defeat him next time that they get to play together. I thought that was sweet. That's what I want to be. Like, I want to be that grandfather that comes over and plays with my grandkids and have that kind of experience later on in life.
So Jesse Metcalf says, I grew up in a family that played games, and I want to extend that tradition to my own family. My wife grew up with a father who loved war games and Avalon Hill games. Ever since we met, we've played board games together, and I've made great efforts at including my 2 daughters in the hobby. And his oldest daughter is playing role-playing games now. And then his youngest daughter just turned 5. She likes board games like Chutes and Ladders and Hi-Ho Cheerio, and he wants to be able to kind of bring her into some more complex for her, so like some of the Haba stuff. So Tiger Mom says, my husband and oldest son play games with me and usually have a good time, but my youngest is the gamer. However, the most remarkable effect that gaming has had on my family relationships has been between me and my brother. Often when I would come to see my parents, my brother would feel obligated by my mom and dad to come over and hang out. We don't really have that much in common, so we often sat around and tried to talk to each other, but we never got a very good conversation going. But now I look forward to the visits with my brother, and when we get together, he's excited to play games with me as well. He even made a trip up to play games with me and our nephew last fall. In addition, I love playing at a game like Ice Cool or Codames, where my parents, my kids, and my brother can all play on equal footing. Having those intergenerational experiences are so wonderful. Board games have definitely had a bit of a magical impact on my family.
That's super awesome. And finally, Megan Nexer, who is a delight, by the way. I think I'm saying her last name right. She's very talented, too. I'm extremely lucky to have a spouse who rediscovered the hobby with me. As we went through the usual gateway games and found new games we enjoyed, we got to grow as players together, especially with abstract 2-player games like Hive. By the way, that is another game that Christina is crazy about, is Hive. I forgot about Hive.
Great game.
It has been absolutely amazing gaming with my partner, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. What a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, well, let's wrap up this episode, Rob. But before we do, we have some episode title runners up. So let's go through them. Obviously a lot of Star Wars references, which all brought a smile to my face because I love that kind of stuff.
Okay, I'd like to start with one of my favorite ones. It was Blaine Miley, I think that was the name. I am one with the pegs, and the pegs are with me.
Which is a reference to Chirrut Imwe from Rogue One. Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So probably my number 2 choice from Jimmy DM90, Grande Moff Tarkin instead of Grand Moff Tarkin. Oh, it's so good.
Nate Thompson came up with blue lightsaber, pink lightsaber.
Yeah, I like that.
It's nice.
And then kind of a take on Jedi Knights, Jesse Metcalf suggested, how about Jedi Caballeros, which are the little guys from El Grande?
And Chris K says, is it Galaxia far away?
Galicia.
Galicia. Now, hit me. What is a Galicia?
A Galicia is a region of Spain. It's on the northwest coast. I've actually been there.
Look at you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, Galicia far away. That's fantastic. And then so that's it for the top 6. But as an honorable mention,
This one has to be an honorable mention.
It has to be Scott Sexton. And the reason it's probably not in the top 6 was because Christina wasn't here. Piranha pigs in space. Can you explain what a piranha pig is, or what that's referencing?
Yeah. So, oh man, this is going back. In our first maybe 10, 20 episodes, we talked about one of the questions, we had a hot seat, and we put each other on the hot seat. Now we put other people on it, but we put Christina on the hot seat. And one of the questions for her was, if you go to a con, what would you cosplay as? And one of the things that she said that she wanted to do, or it was like something a conversation came up about role playing and how I didn't want her. She wanted to do all this crazy stuff when we were role playing. I think that's how it started actually. And she said, "Well, if I want to role play, I want to role play a scout who shoots a gun, and the gun doesn't shoot bullets, it shoots piranha pigs." And the argument was, you can't do that, you can't. And so she's like, well, it's fantasy, I can do whatever I want to. So we had this big long conversation about piranha pigs. Well, it kind of took off with the peg heads, and we started getting all this art. Like the very next episode, people were sending this art of an illustration of a piranha pig. So now it's kind of our mascot, the piranha pig.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's always amazing what one thing that could just be a throwaway thing can take off with listeners. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, and so yeah, piranha pigs in space. Thank you, Mr. Sexton. What a great idea. Honorable mention.
Yes, indeed. All right, well, listen, Rob, I want to thank you for being here.
Sean, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. Like I said before, I've listened to you guys for 3 years. I mentioned this on the episode with Tony from Rolling Dice Taking Names, that when I first started listening to podcasts, it was them, it was Secret Cabal, it was Dice Tower, and it was you guys. And consistently, I've been listening to you guys since then. So it's very cool to have you here on the show. And I'm really happy that you took the time, and even Patrick, right? Like Patrick had to come over and set up the equipment. So
he had to help me out. We're still learning. We got some new equipment. Thank you, Patreon. And we're still learning it. So he had to come over, and you got to chat with him a little bit.
Well, I appreciate the time that both you and he have put into making sure this has happened. And I think it's just cool that you're here. You're for the end of Alex's hiatus too. So
yeah, well, this has been a lot of fun. And I'm glad you asked me. I was like, yeah, I want to be on the Dukes of Dice. Awesome.
No, for sure. It was definitely one of the first people I thought of. For sure. All right. So Blue Peg, Pink Peg, what's going on with your podcast? How can people find you? All that good stuff.
We've got a website, bluepegpinkpeg.com. We release our podcast every 2 weeks. You can catch me on Twitter at LoudPeg, because I guess I am the loud one of the bunch. We also have a Twitter account for Blue Peg Pink Peg. Basically, if you type Blue Peg Pink Peg in your internet search of choice, you will find us. You guys just released an episode this last week? Yes, we did, and we reviewed a game that I forgot about. So you're throwing me under the bus. Sorry, I haven't listened to it. I just got a new iPad, and it's literally taken me 4 days to sign in to all the various Wi-Fis that I'm a part of, and to subscribe to stuff. I always whenever I get something new laptop, I'm always like, oh, I'm gonna go do this. Oh wait, I can't do that yet because I'm not set up for that. So I only have I have 2 podcasts on my new iPad so far. Right. We reviewed Railroad Revolution.
Yes.
So, and by the way, it was a great game. That was a peek behind the curtain. But yeah, so like our schedules are always so weird. So we always record kind of far out before. And so we're already playing the game that's we're going to review next. But so it took me a bit to remember what game we played. But yeah, Railroad Revolution is what just dropped.
Cool. Yeah, I've got a copy of that upstairs. I've yet to play it. So I'm excited to hear what you guys think about it. Glad to hear that you liked it.
Yep. It was a good game.
Cool. Well, I'll definitely go check that out. All right. Well, let's wrap up episode 140, titled simply I Know, thanks to John Giblin. Fantastic. Rob, thank you again. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
So until next time, this is Sean.
And I'm Rob.
And a hearty Hail Hydra to everyone.
Hail Hydra.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy and in the Duchy Embassy in Roanoke, Virginia on April 20th, 2017. Our theme music was provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesofDice.com, find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice, join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild, find us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Tasty Minstrel Games. Check out their awesome titles at arcanewonders.com and playtmg.com. We'll see you back here next week. Until then, as Alex would say, game on. Last time I have to read one of those for a while. Yes!